excited. We have over 1,100 people who have registered for the event. I know many people are just jumping on the link, and I know a number of people are going to be listening to the recording. We're actually this business is right across the country, and so some just because of time. Awesome. So excited to see everyone. Life doesn't happen as we want it to sometimes. So my computer decided to do a reboot. That's always fun. So we are really, really excited about putting on this event. We see this event becoming a multi-time event, over many years. And the concept was created by our first speaker, John Cameron, and really thought about what are the things that we would have loved to have known coming out of high school, those things that you really don't learn in university. And again, university is a great spot. You learn a lot of things, and it's not, we don't learn them because there's something wrong. We don't learn them because there's just so many things to learn and know about the world. And so one of the things I wanted to acknowledge was first of all the people here who really are making a difference in their lives and are interested in learning more and becoming more and finding out more things about leadership. And it always interests me. We have libraries all over the place, but not everyone's picking up books. So this is a free seminar, and this seminar is available for people. And I just want to acknowledge everyone here and everyone also who's going to be jumping on later for the recording and listening and looking for what they can learn and looking for what they can take and make a difference in their lives, make a difference in their leadership. So that's kind of the theme is, what don't they teach us in school? What are some ways to think differently about leadership? Because we as an organization really believe in and have really spent, this is our 40th year developing the leaders of tomorrow. And that's something that we are committed to doing. That's something that we continue to do. I know one big thing that I'm really excited about, seeing a whole group of alumni on the early link here, and so welcome to you. Welcome to everybody. One thing to keep in mind is if you love what we're putting out tonight, and some friends that you haven't reached out to, you're welcome to point them back to the link, because we're going to post the link so that they can listen and they can take the value of the event. We've got four speakers tonight. So our last speaker is going to be Patrick Lalonde, who is the Vice President of the Student Works Management Program. He's been with us over 11 years, and he's going to be talking about mindset. And we just believe so powerfully in mindset and how it's up your world, and just how we see things and how our mindset will literally push us to success in life or prevent us from having a lot of success in life. Our third speaker is someone who actually has made an enormous difference in the history, the success of Student Works Management Program, and that's Brian Scudamore. Brian Scudamore has developed a business that generates over $500 million worth of business, and Brian through all sorts of radio commercials that run across North America, and the brands that he's developed: 1-800-JUNK, Wow Painting, and Shack Shine. And he's just an incredible entrepreneur. And given that it's Entrepreneurs Week, that is one spot that a lot of times leadership takes us in, is entrepreneurship. It's not the only spot by any ways, but it's certainly one direction. And so Brian is going to be coming on and sharing a whole bunch of the wisdom that he's he's developed over the last number of decades. And we're really, really excited. And just to speak to Brian and his connection with our company, is Brian actually was really instrumental for us, and the leader of the Western Canada business, Andrew Britnell, may rest in peace. Andrew and Brian were great friends, and I know Brian made a bunch of major contributions that assisted the Western Canada Student Works and Eastern Canada Student Works. So we really appreciate Brian for that. And Kory MacKinnon is a alumnus of our program. He spent over 20 years working with our program, a former national level athlete, Olympic weightlifting, turned a corporate career with us into a incredible, successful history. And he started investing in real estate really late at age 30, but it snowballed into early retirement 6 years later. And he's closing in on having 100 doors in his portfolio. Now a full-time real estate investing coach, Kory helps others burn their 9-to-5 with scaling their real estate holdings. Some have been able to retire in their 20s. He's a father of 4, a health hacker, and a coach to many. So we're really excited to have Kory come on. And our first speaker is John Cameron, who conceived of this event. And it's really, I just love, again, John came to me and said, wouldn't it be amazing to have an event where we had this opportunity to share a bunch of the wisdom that we share on a regular basis in our program and just put it out there. And this is in one of the ways that this, coronavirus, this COVID, which has created so much pain in the world, has also created all sorts of value. And leaders who see that value and can create value are all of a sudden creating fantastic value. And I wanted to acknowledge John, because that's really value that's getting created here, is because he spoke up, he saw this opportunity, he saw that literally in the course of about 7, 8, 9 days, we had 1,100 people registered to listen to this event and be able to have this event run right across the nation. And this wouldn't have happened pre-COVID. Okay, now again, no one would think, oh, this is great to have a pandemic. No, and as a result of the pandemic, now this is what we can do. This is what's possible. So I'm really excited to have John be our first speaker. John has spent 6 years in our business. He was a 3-time extraordinarily successful operator in our business. We have these high performers that we go to Mexico with. And so John was a multi-time Mexico operator. And he's run as a district manager. He's heading into his 3rd summer. So he runs $1 million this coming season. We're expecting $2 million worth of business that John and his team are going to operate. So a tremendous young leader, just a recent graduate from the University of Guelph. So John, so excited about all you're going to share tonight or this afternoon with us.
Thanks so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. So I think I should be able to share my screen here. Awesome. So yeah, guys, first of all, I want to just say thank you for everyone actually coming out to this event. I know there's so many things that we could be doing tonight, but I really appreciate you spending the time here with us. And obviously, thanks so much, Chris, for that awesome introduction. So yeah, so obviously my name's John Cameron. This is my 6th year now with the program. And, as a kid, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never really loved school, but what I've learned is that I've always really loved learning. It's just that what I actually wanted to learn about has not really typically been talked about throughout the education that I've been a part of. So I recently graduated from the University of Guelph. And for me, like growing up, if I wasn't going to be an entrepreneur, if I wasn't going to run my own business, I was probably going to go and become, like a psychologist or something like that. Because really, like, I just love people. I love learning about people and what makes them tick and, sorry, just getting my screen shared here. and really like what there is for us to understand about what makes people the way that they are and the way that they think about the world. And one of the things that I think is really instrumental that I've been able to take away from these last couple of years is communication, and understanding how communication impacts our perceptions and the reality in which we actually live. So that's a lot of what I'm going to be speaking to everyone about tonight. And a lot of communication really just starts with how you listen to people. So that's the question, is like, how do you listen to people? Are you listening to actually listen and be present in the conversation? Or are you listening to respond, to figure out, or to analyze what that person is saying? you know, Even as I'm starting to share this with all of you right now, a lot of you probably have some part of that going on. Like, who is this guy? Have I heard this stuff before? This is maybe sort of like that other thing. Does he want something from me? Will I agree with him? Disagree with him? There's all these things that are constantly going on in our brain. And there's like this kind of like little voice, right? That's constantly trying to see, is what this person's saying in alignment with what I think? How does this fit in already to what I think? And how am I going to get my point across in this conversation? And sometimes that little voice that's in your head is sometimes even louder than the person that's actually speaking to you. And what ultimately ends up happening is that it really limits your ability to really hear what the person is trying to tell you, because you're just so caught up in trying to figure out what the person is meaning by what they're saying to you. And I'm sure that we've all had the experience in a conversation where we're trying to get our point across about something, and that while the other person is speaking, you're just trying to figure out, like, how are you going to say what you want to say, instead of just really listening and being present in that conversation with that person. And oftentimes it leads to a lot of miscommunication that ends up happening, because what you're trying to say to that person isn't what they're hearing, and what they're saying back to you isn't necessarily what you're hearing. So as we go throughout this evening, I would really highly recommend just listening to what our speakers are saying with a fresh set of ears, and just listening for what don't you know, and just really being present, trying to turn off that little inner dialogue that is constantly running all over the place. Effective communication really just starts with listening. And that is most of what I want to talk about today, is how you listen to people. Because really, your ability to communicate will determine the quality of your relationships. And in turn, the value of your relationships will determine the quality of your life. And I hope that's part of what you guys are going to really realize today. So, what is that voice, and what does it want? See, oftentimes I think that, we're listening to people for what we want to hear them say, not about what is actually being said. The crazy thing is that the thing that we want to hear, it's not even actually what we want to hear. So, we already have all these beliefs about ourselves and other people, different groups, our family, our friends, our coworkers, whoever. So, when we're in a conversation with someone, we're really always just trying to figure out, how does this fit into what I already think? Do I agree? So, where do these filters actually come from? So, and really, what do they look like? Well, you could kind of think of it like a filter for all of the information that's getting thrown at you. And really what it is that it always wants to be right. So that voice in your head, it's like you have this belief about a way that somebody is, or a way that you are, and what you're hearing is that belief in everything that that other person is saying. So essentially, if we look, like, where do they actually come from? Well, a couple of different spots. So the first one would be really our beliefs. Our beliefs shape a ton of our filters around the world, in part because they're formed by the following spots as well. But these beliefs that we have about ourselves, about other people, and about society, they really show up in every conversation that we're having with people. So let's say, for example, someone had the belief that people were good. People had really great intentions, and everybody just wanted the best for them. And say, for example, another person, believed the opposite, that people had bad intentions. If both people had someone come up to them and say, "Hey, really sorry I couldn't make it out to your event tonight. I really wanted to. I had something come up." How would both people react? Well, the first person would probably feel pretty good about it. They would have, really thought like, yeah, they would have came if they could have. It's just something had come up. Like, I hope everything is okay. And on the other hand, the second person would think, are they lying? Maybe they just don't like me. Like, do people even care? They could go off into all sorts of different things. So, how would that change each person's response? Well, the first person would probably respond in like an empathetic, caring way, right? Hey, no worries at all. Like, I really hope everything is okay. Like, what's going on? And the second person you could see them responding with something more negative, such as, no worries, like I didn't expect you to show up anyway. Why couldn't you make it this time? And those two conversations, they're going to go in two totally different paths, right? Like the outcomes of those conversations are going to be totally, totally different. And you can see how this would show up in all sorts of different places depending on like what your beliefs are. And even we can tie that into like personal prejudices that are even subconscious as well, that kind of show our listening of the other person. So, for instance, if you dislike somebody, or, you dislike somebody at work, well, even if they came to you with a really great idea, we're more likely to be dismissive of their ideas. We're like, this person is always coming up with ideas, and, they're never good, or, whatever. I just don't like this person. And so immediately, like the pathway that your brain goes down is not, oh, wow, like look at this amazing opportunity. It's immediately just coming as essentially that you just don't like that person. Now, on the contrary, when we interact with people that we admire, we might even be overly optimistic in supporting their ideas, even if their idea was worse than the first person's idea that we didn't necessarily like. So these filters that we put into our communication that are based off of our beliefs really can, kind of limit our effectiveness of our communication. So the other one would be the expectations, because, and I think this is probably one of the bigger ones, to be honest, because with every conversation that we enter, we have some sort of an expectation of an outcome, right? So my expectation might be that, every time I talk to my mom, she's always going to have a bone to pick with me. Like, literally nothing I do will ever be good enough. So no matter what she says, that's all that I'm going to hear. She could tell me, "John, I'm so proud of you for graduating. Like, what's next for you?" And be so excited by that. Like, she could really be excited for me and my graduation, and really excited about what's going to be next for me. And if I had the expectation that every time I'm going to talk with her that, nothing I ever do is going to be good enough, then all I'm going to hear in that moment is, of course she's asking what's next. Like, can't she just be happy that I graduated? Like, why is nothing I do ever enough? Now, luckily, I don't have that expectation when I talk with my mom. My expectation is that when I start a conversation with her, I hear her commitment to me. I hear that she's going to love me and she's going to support me, and really want what's best for me. So even if she said to me, "John, okay, you graduated, but like you really got to figure out what the F you're going to do with the rest of your life," like in this really negative way, it would be really easy for somebody to hear that and to put that filter on. Like, she just doesn't think that I'm enough, or, whatever. But really, the way you choose to listen to people is going to shape the way that the world occurs for you. So for me, even if she were to say that, I would really hear it as like, wow, my mom is committed to me living a happy and a very successful life. Like, aren't I so lucky that, she's willing to have a quote unquote uncomfortable conversation with me and really push me. And, I'm so lucky that that's actually what is going to happen for me here. Right. And so the expectations of the conversation really dictate the rest of the way that that conversation will go. Because if I had that expectation that, nothing I do is ever going to be enough, and she were to say that, John, I'm so proud of you graduating, like, what's next for you? And that's all I heard, I would go into defense mode, right? I would be like, what do you mean what's next for me? Like, I just graduated. Like, why can't that be enough? And now all of a sudden I'm getting her to justify why that's not enough, instead of just being excited about it with her, right? And seeing like the happiness that is actually being brought to the conversation. So it's really critical that you start to understand that what people are saying to you isn't necessarily what they're actually saying. And I'm sure you guys have had that experience too, where you're trying to talk to somebody about something, and ultimately it just doesn't land the way that you wanted to, and they're like, why did you say that? And you're like, I didn't say that. That isn't what I actually meant to say. And I'm sure that's been in the reverse as well. And so the thing that's oftentimes missing is just that one extra question, right? And if we look at, our past, it could be, say I was having a conversation with my mom or my dad or whatever, and I said, I really would love to go and start a business this year. And that's the conversation that I'm having. And they respond back, I don't think it's a very good idea for you to start a business at such a young age. Well, I could hear that and go, why don't they believe in me? Like, I don't get why they don't believe that I can go and do this. But what could have happened is that, they actually had a filter on what I was saying. So the filter that they may have had could have come from their past. They could have, started their own business when they were a kid and it didn't work out. Right. And so they're not saying that I'm incapable, but it's just that, they want to protect me. They're like, there's this risk, and we want the best for you. So oftentimes what's missing is just that one extra little question. Hey, I'm making up that, you don't think that I can do this. Is that actually what you're saying? And it opens the door for a conversation that is actually way more in line with what is really going on. So how you listen to people, it really shapes the world that is around you. The thing about having filters is that they actually make you see and hear everything you already believe. So if you thought that, girls just don't want to talk to me, I'm not worthy of their attention, then that's all you're going to hear in every conversation you go to and every conversation you walk away from. If you think, I'm just not capable of achieving more or doing that thing, then when you ask for a promotion or you ask for a raise, you won't ask for it in a way that actually results in you getting what you want. Because what's likely is that you're actually going to make yourself small. You're not going to be powerful in your communication with them, because the filter is that person doesn't think that I'm capable. So whether it's getting a girl to date you or booking a job or getting a promotion, your filter, your little voice that's in your head, it wants to be right about what's going to happen. And what is going to happen might not even necessarily be what you want, but you just want to be right about what you think is going to happen. So I want to show you a little bit about how that would actually work. So it's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's kind of the idea that whatever you believe to be true is going to become true given enough time. It's a phenomenon of someone predicting or expecting something, and that this prediction or expectation actually comes true because the person believes it will, and the person's behavior actually starts to align to fulfill that belief. So we'll play to two different extremes. So say, for example, you have the belief in the filter that the world is against you. Everything is happening to you. You aren't a capable person. You just don't have what it takes to be successful. Well, how would that impact your actions? Well, every action you take is taken with that filter that you are not a capable person. Well, I mean, if we look here, right, we've got the belief about the future. I'm not capable. I'm not going to get that job. I'm not going to, achieve that thing. Right. And so if that's the case, we're going to start taking actions that are based off of that belief. Well, if you aren't capable of getting the job you want, why even apply? Right? Or why put a lot of effort into the application? I mean, it's just going to be a waste of time anyway. And let's say that you did apply and you got the interview. How would having that belief in yourself and that filter being put onto the hiring manager actually impact the way that you are in that interview? Well, I mean, if you aren't thinking that you're like capable and you think that you aren't deserving of success, again, we're going to make ourselves small in that interview. And what I mean is, you're more likely to stumble over your words, or maybe like not answer the questions in the best way that you possibly could. Or, when a hiring manager says to you, is there anything else that you think that we should know about you, before we make our decision? You will hear and you will see, I knew I wouldn't get it. And then you decide that there's nothing else to say because, like what's the point? Like, I'm not going to get it anyway. So what happens is that because all of these actions have been taken because of that belief and all the things you thought that person was trying to tell you, your filter gets the result that it wanted to be right, but not the result that you truly wanted to get that job, to, book that estimate with that client. And what ends up happening is that because you're taking these actions based off of having that belief, it ends up in results of those, like the results of those actions confirm the original belief. And then it feeds back into itself. And this is what we would call a feedback loop. So these feedback loops happen in the conversation. You can even look about, the expectation of going into a conversation, right? The expectation is that every time I go and have this conversation with this person, they're just going to be so negative about everything that I'm saying. Well, now I'm going in and I'm talking to them as if they're just going to be negative. And what ultimately ends up happening there is that they are negative because you went into the conversation trying to bring that negativity out, or, they say something and then you make it mean that they don't believe in you or whatever. And then the result of that is that, you walk away from that conversation even more determined in what you already thought. Because again, we all want to be right. It's like the natural human condition. Now, on the other hand, say for example that, you believe that you were or will become extremely capable, and that everything isn't happening to you, but it's happening for you. Or as mentioned in The Alchemist, that, when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. Well, how would your actions be different? How would they look different based off of this belief? How would your conversations look differently if that's the case? Well, I mean, if you think that you're deserving of that job, you're probably more likely to actually go and apply, and more likely to care about putting together a better application. And when you get to the interview, you'll feel more confident because, you just kind of are more confident. You believe that you deserve it. And that hiring manager also will think that as well. And you're just going to do better off in the interview. So they might ask that question, is there anything else that you think that we should know about you before making our decision? And instead of saying no or giving them some short answer, you give them the answer that is really powerful and really portrays the confidence that you're bringing to it. So because you believe that you deserve it, and you believe that that person on the other side of the table, their filter on you is that, you're really capable, you are deserving of this job or booking this estimate, or you could see how this shows up everywhere. You take actions as if you do, which actually in turns will help you get it. And because you get it, you confirm your belief that you deserve it. And that carries off into literally everything else that you go and do. And so these feedback loops, they happen in our communication as well. Maybe you believed about how a conversation is going to go. Maybe it's that you're trying to close a sale and that customer is going to say no, right? And when you're in that estimate with that client, right, or you're trying to close that sale, they say that, oh, we're going to need to think about it. And right away, if you had that belief that they were going to say no, and the filter is that, no matter what I do, I'm not going to impress this person, or I'm not good enough, or whatever. If you go in with that sort of a filter and a belief, well, as soon as you hear, I need to think about it, you go, of course they do. Like, I wasn't going to get it anyway. Okay, we'll see you later. But if you have the expectation of the other person that, hey, look, like, they're going to book with me today, I'm going to close this sale, I'm going to get this job or whatever, Well, now you don't look at, I'm going to think about it as this ending of the conversation, but the start of something new. So these filters, these perceptions, these feedback loops, they really create your reality. They create the world in which you are actually living in. And, as mentioned at the beginning of my share, like your ability to communicate will determine the quality of your relationships. And in turn, the value of your relationships will determine the quality of your life. I hope you guys can see that a lot of communication, for sure, it happens with others, 100%. And in large part, it really happens inside of yourself, and like that constant conversation that you're having with yourself, and the filters that you're putting on to everyone else. Because trust me, if you have these filters that like the world is happening for you, that is what you're going to see. Like your world really does look different. And I think so often, we're in these conversations and we hear somebody say something to us that maybe we don't agree with, or maybe it doesn't align with what we already thought to be true. And immediately, we jump to this defensive. And all it takes is just understanding that, until we know that these filters exist, we don't observe reality as a perception, but as the absolute truth. So oftentimes, what is actually being said to us isn't what is being said. It's not what we're actually hearing. So until we know that like these filters, these perceptions exist, we're not observing reality as if it is a perception, as if it's an observation of, hey, is this what is actually going on? We just look at it like this is the thing. This is actually what is going on. And oftentimes all it takes is just one extra question. Just, hey, I'm hearing this. Is that actually what's being said here? And I think that is really the thing that can make all of the difference for people, is just understanding that what we're hearing is not always what is being said. And I'm sure you've had the experience as well that you say something to someone, it's not actually what you meant to say. And that's why the intent matters. If you have the intent to be a good person, to communicate in a way that lands with that other person, then even if you mess up, even if it wasn't all that clear, you can always just pick up the phone, give them a call, and kind of clear that air. So I'll leave you with this, which is essentially, what other filters do you have? What filters are you putting on your family and on your friends and on your coworkers? And how is that distorting your actual reality? And how does these perceptions show up for you? So I really appreciate you guys hearing me out. And we do obviously have some time for questions here. And I'll invite Chris up here. I'll make him on the spotlight as well for anything he wants to add.
Fantastic, John. Thanks so much. I thought that was it's a very, very hard concept, and to sort of really get it. And I think you really communicated that very powerfully. One of the things that I find myself saying quite often is to sort of be aware of the filters that I'm using, or the perceptions that I'm having. Is I'll say, I make up that this is happening, or I make up that this is what's happening in the world. And the idea that I'm making it up isn't that I'm making it up, it's that I'm recognizing the filters that I'm having that are creating the worldview that I have. We all have a worldview. That worldview shifts, and it really, really makes all the difference to sort of see those filters. And again, throughout the evening, one of the things that I'm encouraging everybody to really try on is Brian Scudamore, Kory MacKinnon, Patrick Lalonde, like John, are going to challenge you in shifting the way you're thinking potentially. And that's fantastic. Like, it's really wonderful, right? Again, if we're thinking about it, we don't want to be right, but in a wrong-headed way. We actually want to see the world as in the best possible way that's going to get you to achieve the goals that you want. And so So, opening up to a new way of thinking. I kind of like the idea, hey, try it on like a jacket, wear it around a little bit, see how that's going to work for you. And then, hey, I can take it off and say, hey, I don't like that jacket. It doesn't look good with me. I look good in blue, but it's not blue. I'm not likely wearing it. So, but just one thing that we're open to is any questions. So you can use the feature to raise your hand for a question for us. But great work, Johnny.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Gabe, nice to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you guys too. Been a while. Sure. Thank you again for that share. It's fantastic. And I'm currently working as the marketing manager of my parents' hotel, and COVID's been hitting pretty hard. But
yeah,
I find that what you're saying is so crucial, but so challenging, because my father is both my boss and my father. And it's really difficult for me to like look at the filters that I find myself putting on like my son filters, like my filters as his son when I'm talking to him. And I'm like, no, I need to like put those aside and just be like, no, I'm the employee right now, and he's the owner. Right. And it's just like, yeah. Is there any things that you do with, I don't know, like Chris, you actually have experience with this with Devin, I guess. Like, do you have any tips?
I definitely have some insight and some experience to share. Yeah. I'm not a big believer in providing advice. So there's two relationships that I have. The CEO of our business is my wife, Helen, and partner. And so we need to be really, really clear. First of all, what roles we're playing. Okay, you're the head coach. I'm the CEO, or you're the CEO. Here's the roles that she's in, and then define that. You've got that sphere. I've got that sphere. And also, one of the things we need to do is, right now, I'm talking to you as my partner, my best friend, not in an employee, like we're now, partners in a multi-million-dollar super performing business. No, I'm concerned about, and this is way more emotional. This isn't like a board meeting, right? And so it's difficult to do that. My son also works in our businesses and a superstar performer. And again, in that relationship, he reports directly to Patrick Lalonde, our vice president, and Patrick really well, just so there's no reporting relationship. I'm a coach though, and quite often he'll call me for coaching, but there's no reporting. And so those are some structures that we use that really help, because there's definitely filters of, hey, there's mom, there's dad, there's my wife, there's my husband, there's my father, right? Those things all make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much, Gabe. And best of luck through an incredibly hard time, right? And that's also really important as well. When people hear what we're saying, oh, wow, some businesses are pivoting. Well, way easier for some businesses to pivot than the restaurant business that are being shut down by our government. And again, not saying there's anything wrong that the government's doing what they're doing, just saying that that's what's happening, right? So
yeah, we've done these really cool like starlight chalets. So like we've built these little greenhouses that are like transparent and heated, so that we can serve our guests outside by the waterfalls, but like safely through COVID. And it's been like super well received. So like that was something we never would have done before, but like we're going to continue to do it every year, like something like this. Yeah. So
fantastic. Well done. And I saw Pedram put his hand up.
Yes, sir. Hi,
all right.
It's been a while.
It has. Great to see you.
Nice to see you guys too. I love seeing everyone's beautiful faces here. I love hearing the way the seminar is going so far. So I know I actually had this problem with Johnny when I was trying to run my business last year.
Right.
My question for you guys, and I've noticed, because this is something that like comes and goes for me as well. How do you stay consistent with the filter that you're trying to hold on to? So I guess what I mean by that is like one thing I've been trying is like positive affirmations in the morning, right? Like wake up in the morning, I journal, and then after I journal, I do a little bit of meditation, get my mindset going clear, and then I try to set my expectation for the day. And once I set that expectation for the day, I go over the affirmations of like how I want to view that day.
Right.
But I do notice that like there are days where it's harder to do that, and there are days that like I might be a little more foggy minded. What are some strategies that you guys use?
Yeah. So
John, why don't you answer first?
yeah, and it's good to see you for sure. I think that that's like a really great spot to start from. For me, I guess the big thing is that like these filters don't necessarily eliminate themselves like that, right? I think that the first thing is to like understand that that is a filter, like that the way that you're hearing it isn't necessarily what is actually going on. And like that could be, by the way, something that you read, something that you just observe in the world. So it's not even necessarily that like, oh, just all my filters are all the best. It's that I guess I just have the understanding in a lot of times that like what I'm perceiving to be true isn't necessarily the actual truth of the matter. It's not actually what's going on. And so by just having that distinction right off the bat that is this what's actually happening? It kind of allows me to navigate through life in this really happy and positive way because I'm not making any final conclusions for quite a while. Like I'm just kind of floating through, if you will. Like I'm just understanding that the reality in which I'm perceiving isn't necessarily the absolute truth, but just a perception of what I'm seeing. And that makes it a whole lot easier for me. And the more that you do that and the more that you acknowledge that, the faster that you're going to be able to continue to do that in the future as well.
That's great. And I'm not a huge believer in what are they called again? Affirmations, and not that they're not a bad thing, but just and I guess I make up that the idea of an affirmation is to believe that I'm going to be successful, is believe that the world's going to turn out a certain way, that I'm going to get a certain result. So I would rather I look at life two ways. Number one, I set up a schedule. This is my plan. And then very simply, did I stay in integrity with my plan? Okay, so I set up, like John and I, we've got this event. Trust us, we're going to run it from 5 to 9. And that is 100% our commitment. So when you can be in integrity with that, I believe over time you're going to live a powerful life. And then the second step, Pedram, is just simply how well do I do that? So, and all of you will be able to judge how well we did this, okay? And you'll be able to judge, but we'll also judge. And we'll go, how did it go? I know one piece of feedback already is we didn't have enough diversity in our group. We just threw this group together, way too white, way too male, or way, just we more diversity. That's one piece of feedback we already have and we're going to take in. And so all there is to do is do the best you can in every role that you have. And then at the end of the day, one great best practice I have, Pedram, is I acknowledge myself for the things I did well. And I think back about what I did well, how did I contribute? And then the next step is just gratitude. What can I be grateful for? So that sort of 3-step process is what I do. But the real big piece is, how do we live a great life? We live in integrity. We do the things we say we're going to do. And then the second step is we just keep getting better. And that piece is, let's go get some coaches. Let's go listen to some free Zoom events. Let's go read some books, and be in relationship with some amazing people. And then just be in action.
Love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I know one question that Kory had out for you, John, is how important is communication in avoiding problems?
Yeah. So I think it is the thing, 100%. Literally, like if you can just set really good expectations in your communication, it ultimately, and being really crystal clear about what you want and what your intentions are, I think that it is the thing when it comes to avoiding problems. And I mean, like problems are always bound to happen in one form or the other, like, problems, they're profit kind of idea. But really, like in terms of problems inside of relationships, whether it's preventative and it's about, just avoiding problems in the first place, or whether it's about solving them, they all come down to that communication and really just listening and asking those extra clarifying questions, right? Because these problems will come up in our relationships and they can either spiral upwards and really be a positive thing, or they can spiral downwards and make the problem even worse, right? And so when the problem does come up, I think that by having really effective communication, it makes the relationship even stronger. Like I'm not afraid of the confrontation or the problem. It's that it actually, I view it as an opportunity to understand the other person's side a whole lot better. And like, because everyone has their own perceptions, their own filters. And so, it's obviously really important when it comes to preventing them, but obviously when you're dealing with them as well, just being in really great communication and being clear in what you actually want and what you're hearing, I think does make all the difference. So what are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, I guess two parts that I want to share. One of them is expectations management. So one of the things that we've been coaching, and I learned as an operator in my second year university when I first came into contact with this business, is expectations management. Being really clear with your staff, with your team, with your family, with your partner, with everybody possible. This is what you want. This is what you're looking for. So you're really, really trying to paint a picture, paint a path. This is where we're going. Okay. So that's really, really important. And that can really effectively have things go better more regularly. And then the second part of communication, is something that I'm still struggling with and still work on getting better is what the things that don't work in communication. One thing that doesn't work for me, John, is I get defensive. Okay, so and again, defensiveness is probably around being right or doing a good enough job, or did I do that well enough? So those are things that I struggle with. And then again, that would be a filter. I'm always seeing that filter to sort of see, am I doing it well enough? Is that good enough? And then when we can see it, we can again be more loving, more caring with ourselves when we are being defensive or when we're being hard on ourselves, etc.
Absolutely. Love it.
So we've got Steve Frook, one of our amazing alumni, who's on the Leaders of Tomorrow podcast as well. So, and is a senior VP of a financial tech firm. So Steve, thanks for jumping in with us.
There you go. Thanks for hosting tonight, Chris and John. Great presentation. Loved your comments about filters. I am always trying to assume positive intent,
yes.
which I guess is related to filters, but kind of keen on your thoughts when when we're communicating with people, and maybe it's kind of obvious that what we're saying, it has a filter being applied by somebody else on it. So how do we help others in that moment of time when we're talking to them to sort of take away those filters that they may have on what we're actually trying to communicate?
That's a really awesome question. I think that it actually comes back to asking that question of, like, I guess when you're in that conversation and you're seeing that it might not be landing. And I feel like there's this sense that you kind of get in just the way that their face is expressed and their tonality and the things that they're saying back to you. If you're hearing like, I don't know if this is really landing, I don't know if this is going the way that I think it should be or that I want it to be, it's not getting created in the way that I had intended, hey, like, I just want to check in. Like, what are you hearing from what I'm saying so far? And just that one little question of, I don't want to be talking past each other. Like, what do you think this conversation is all about? And of course, there's a lot of nuance to each conversation that we're in, but I think that just taking a more like investigative approach to communication where you're just really trying to understand the other person's side before you seek to be understood. That's a how to win friends and influence people technique. It does become really helpful. And Chris, like, I would really love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, no, John, I'm like, Johnny, that's it. Johnny and I have been working together. So that is exactly what I would be doing is if I'm having a thought going, gee, Steve somehow is misunderstanding me. And I'm just wondering, is he thinking this? I would just go, Steve, I just think there's just some misunderstanding. Or, what are you thinking? Because here's my intention. This is my goal for the meeting. What are you thinking about? So it's you start to see the communication trail off, and it's going sideways. Just try to push it back with, this is my intention. This is my goal. This is my plan. This is what I'm looking for. And remember as well, like, this stuff isn't tactics, because if it's tactics, then it's a manipulation. It won't work. It's always who you're being in the conversation. So if you're being trustworthy, if you're being caring, if you're really looking out for Steve, and Steve knows I'm looking out for him, and Steve's always looking out for me. So if we're being that way in the conversation, then the conversation will just flow. Okay, oh, I can trust Chris because he's trustworthy. And by the way, as well, that's why it's really important to be trustworthy in all your conversations, because if I'm trustworthy in all my conversations, then I'm not having to change and be, I'm always trustworthy with my friends. I'm always trustworthy with my mom, but well, sometimes I'm not so trustworthy. With the person on the street, how am I going to act? I saw a post on social media with one of the shopping carts and saying, I don't know, and the post said, I don't know a single successful person who wouldn't return their shopping cart on a consistent basis. And I considered that, and I went, you're right, because what shows up in one area of our life is going to show up in every area of our life. I know you return shopping carts, Steve.
Every single one. I saw that post too, because I think it said a caption of, because if you can't do the easy stuff, you sure as heck can't do the hard stuff, or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Anyway,
yeah.
So, perfect. Thanks, John. Thanks, Chris.
Really,
all right. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to give people why don't you turn some music on? We're going to give people like an interlude, stretch your legs, move around, quick bathroom break, and then we're going to have Kory come back and join us. So Johnny, fantastic. Woo! Well done. Really awesome.
Now I just need to get the music going. I don't have that.
All right. Good. Okay. So thank you so much. I really thought John did a really powerful job in that presentation, and I'm very appreciative. And one question that I recognize that we really didn't answer was from Rashmi, is how do you encourage others to openly communicate with you? And my take on that is by openly communicating with them. So, what you want in the world, it's like what, Gandhi said, be the change you want to be in the world. So if you want love, bring love. If you want communication, bring communication. Being open, non-defensive, caring will bring communication your way. So in a really powerful way. So and then it's also important to understand. Sorry, I got thrown off because I was reading a note. So what we're up to now is we're going to bring Kory up, and John, if you could share the hosting with Kory so that Kory can share his screen. And again, I'm really excited when we put this concept together. Again, it was really fast, and we wanted somebody who really, like, one of the big ways that leaders think who really make a difference in the world is they just see money differently. They see investing differently. They see wealth differently, and because it's really tough to be a poor leader. Like, it just is. It's tough to make a difference if you're just scraping to get by. It just is. And one of the things about I think that great finances and a great understanding of finances that shows is wisdom. It shows great habits. It shows restraint and character. And so Kory MacKinnon is a really great friend. Again, we've worked together for over 20 years, and he was an incredibly powerful performer in our business. It was operated as a vice president for a long time, developed an enormous amount of value in our business that we still use. And he, as I mentioned earlier, for people who were here at the time, Kory started real estate late in life at age 30. It snowballed into early retirement 6 years later, and he's closing in on 100 doors in his portfolio. Now he's a full-time real estate investment coach. He actually coached a whole number of our alumni, I know, and he helps others turn their 9-to-5 jobs into scaling their real estate holdings. And some have been able to retire into their 20s. He's a father of 4, a health hacker, and a coach to many. So welcome, Kory MacKinnon. So Johnny, are we going to be able to? Here's Kory, fantastic, from Sarnia. All right.
So Chris, you're going to have to make him the host or co-host.
Okay. Well, I can. Okay, fantastic. Well, I can do that.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear my audio okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, everybody, I'm really privileged and obviously very grateful to be in front of you all today. You know, this is our new reality, right? I'm going to do my best to be jumping through the camera at everybody here today, but I do want to see some people coming off, you know, turning their cameras on here. I'm seeing lots of familiar faces here. I'm going to actually scroll through. I want to see some faces here coming on video before I bring up the presentation. Awesome to see some people from, you know, Chris is very accurate when he said this is the 40th year. And I'm going to date myself when I say that I was, you know, in the company when we could say that we're around for like 20 years or so. All right. So thanks everybody for coming on video. And, you know, if you want to show me some love, I'm going to get you guys to be blowing up the chat box a little bit, hitting the reactions a little bit. Let me just make sure I can actually share the screen here properly, and we will get started. Okay, from the beginning. All right, hopefully everybody can see this here okay.
Yes, we can.
Perfecto, cool. Well, I'm going to keep a little icon of myself on the screen just so I can see myself. But this is kind of my signature picture here, okay? So I know this is actually cut off on a lot of the information being marketed about the event. And this is actually the picture that almost never happened. It's interesting how life works in mysterious ways sometimes. But a good friend of mine said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you got a picture of you holding all your keys, right? So I went for this photo shoot. And, you know, we're taking all these like, you know, shots like this and like me looking. And I was like, as they were packing up all their photo equipment after about 2 hours, I said, was there any way we can take a picture of, you know, me holding all my keys? I even brought the keys to the photo shoot along with all my clothes and change of clothes and all that kind of stuff. So, and, you know, the photographers were like, okay, I guess we can do that. So they pinned my shirt back up because, you know, how you actually look in a picture, they actually are making you look that way. Pinned up my shirt. I had to get help getting all the keys on my hands. So that's a little bit about how the picture that almost never happened came about. And now everybody knows me by that picture. So I'm really blessed to talk to everybody here about what they don't teach you in school when it comes to finances and investing. And believe it or not, I'm not going to get too much in the weeds today about, you know, this is what you need to do. as far as getting more properties and so on and so forth. But I'm actually going to teach you a lot of the other things that you need to know to get ahead in life financially. And hopefully it'll come full circle by the time the presentation is over, so everybody gets a lot of value that way. And I just want to make sure that perhaps as I'm talking, it seems like there's a lot more people coming in. And since I'm the host, I guess I might be the one that needs to.
No, we're managing that for you. We've got a bunch of co-hosts, Kory, so we got it.
Cool. Just want to make sure.
You bet.
Got to make sure everybody can get the info today. Okay. So here's just some rules of how to get the most out of today. All right. So I'm going to set some guidelines. Number one, I'm going to be giving 110%. I want to make sure that everybody here is going to be playing all out. Some people put in the chat box, yes, if you're willing to play all out. Can I see some love here? Let's see the chat box blowing up a little bit. All right, I'm seeing it. Wow, look at that. You guys actually can do something. That's awesome. You can turn on your cameras. You can put stuff in the chat box. I love it. So, because in life, you really do get what you put into life. Okay, if you only put 80 or 90% into life, you're going to wonder why you don't get all the riches, why you don't get all the goods. You have to actually do more than what you physically and mentally think and know you can do to get the most out of life and live a rich life. Number two, be a person of action. Okay. So if I ask you to do something, I really appreciate you doing it. And believe it or not, one of the most important traits in the world is being coachable. So, you know, show that you're a coachable person. Some of the best people I've ever worked with in the past and present are the most coachable people. You literally put down the phone from having a conversation with them. They are already picking it up and doing exactly what you coach them to do because you know best for them. That's why they're working with you, because you're always 2 steps ahead. So don't be afraid to be a person of action. There is nothing worse than having somebody that's really book smart. Okay. You know, show me some emoticons if you know some people that are really book smart, but they're not actually doing much with their book smarts. I used to train with someone. He literally used to rewrite the textbooks for his university math professor, but never did anything with it, never really pursued his master's, never became a teacher. Okay, so that would be a travesty. I don't want people to have some of that experience. Number three, make sure you're taking some notes, because there's gonna be a lot of writer downers here. I was already seeing people taking notes furiously during Johnny's talk, and I think that is amazing. And it's interesting what happens versus taking digital notes. Like, obviously take something is better than nothing, but when you actually handwrite notes, it actually hits your nervous system a lot more. Okay, it actually gets into your core because you're engaging more than one sense. Okay, you're actually using your kinesthetic, right? You can see it. And then lots of times we talk to ourselves back the notes, and that's how we get a third sense. Okay, whenever you can engage more than 2 senses, it's going to go deep into your subconscious and become a part of you. Keep an open mind, obviously. All right, so there's nothing more expensive than a closed mind. I'm sure you've heard that quote. However, it is very true. And I can't really make new deposits here if people don't open up their minds to different ways of thinking. Okay, because I'll tell you what, especially during COVID and all these uncertain times, people are hiring me to teach them the different ways to think about things, how to attack problems differently that they haven't done before. Most people aren't doing before. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. And it's interesting now that the tide is going out. You know, this is a health crisis that's creating a financial crisis. And, you know, I know there's going to be some sort of a reset. And when there is, and you're not, you know, actually learning how to pivot and implement things and do things differently, you'll be one of the ones with when the tide comes back in, and you'll be caught with your, you know, skinny dipping when the water was there. Okay. And obviously the last point here is always be looking for the golden threads. Okay. We're not trying to give you so many more things that you're hyper distracted when it comes to, oh my gosh, there's all these new shiny objects I got to go chase down. No, like we're at a leadership summit here. And I'd be curious what the golden threads are that everybody's going to be writing down. Okay. You'll see a lot of commonalities, how important communication is, how important mindset is. Lots of times I actually get called in to be the mindset talker too, because I used to be an athlete, use a lot of those principles towards, you know, my corporate career and investing career too. Okay. So always be looking for the golden threads. All right. Sound good, everybody? Everybody ready to dig in? Show me some yeses here. All right. Blowing up the chat box again. I love it. Okay. So keep in mind, if you're here and your friends aren't, you're on this here, that's okay. You know, you are part of the top 2 to 3% of people your age. I'm seeing all kinds of different ages here on the screen, which is fantastic. I think it's the most fantastic that we're being able to impact college and university age students. And, you know, these are the things that they don't teach you in school. And just remember, being weird is just a side effect of being awesome, okay? To be an entrepreneur, I mean, it's getting more and more popular, but it is actually a little bit different, okay? It's different. You're definitely breaking the mold. You're not popular. And I started being an entrepreneur, gosh, at like the age of a very young age. Even when I was in grade school, I was peer tutoring, okay? So it's like, how do I do this? Do I get a check? Do I ask for cash? You know, I think I got a bit of both, you know, and I've been hustling literally since grade 4. And, you know, look at the trajectory it's put me on. Okay. So if you can start making a little difference early on, here's something you can write down that's not even in my slides. It's time in the game. Okay. The most exciting thing that I love when I can talk to younger people like college and university age, even high school, is that if you get started now with some of these investment principles, you will win the race simply by time in the game. Okay, it's so, so important. We'll touch on it a little bit more later. All right. Now, another point, you might be getting a lot of information overload. All right, so you might feel a little bit like this. I will try to talk, you know, slowly so that people can assimilate all the information. And that's okay. We're going to fill your cup up, hopefully just enough that it's like that perfect dose of what you're looking for. All right, but it's actually okay. Your subconscious brain will actually be picking up on a lot of these cues. So who is Kory and why am I up here? Okay, so there's one slide on me and the rest is going to be for everybody else. Hopefully that's fair enough. So first generation millionaire, parents did well, did the best they could, but single income family, four kids, mouths to feed. It was a different generation. And, you know, I always want to make sure that I can actually make a difference. And a lot of people think that first I have to earn the big money and then I'll be able to do what I need to do and impact the people that I need to impact. Whereas a lot of people are actually living their lives different, backwards. Okay. First, you need to be the right person, do the right things. You'll always have what you want at the end of the day instead of focusing on what you want to have as your first point. Okay, so just make sure you're living your life with intention in the right direction. Done over 50 real estate transactions, close to 100 doors, and that's not even my full-time gig. Real estate has always been pretty part-time for me, about 20 hours a week, and now I'm sharing that forward just because this is my 16th year doing it. I have thousands of hours worth of transactions under my belt, negotiations and research and data and, you know, human psychology when it comes to real estate investing. 22 years in coaching, consulting hundreds and hundreds of high performers in business. Really happy to be one of Chris's, you know, BHAG's, right? Big, hairy, audacious goal of impacting and creating 1,000 millionaires. Frankly, I think Chris should add another 0 to that. You know, who wants to see Chris make that up to 10,000? Maybe he already has, but put some yeses in the chat box if you think he should actually raise his goal by an extra 0, because he set that goal a long time ago. So I think it's time to raise the goal. And again, husband of 1, that's always a bit of a joke. You should only be a husband of 1. Father of 4, active athlete. I actually made a comeback to weightlifting about 5 years ago to show my kids what I used to do when I was younger. And I think it's great to be a leader and to show your kids, you know, be a leader in all sorts of different parts of life, not just, you know, being a great dad, but, you know, what does that mean health wise, financial wise? And I'll show you all the different boxes you want to check here a little bit later on. Okay, 5 different businesses and income streams. All right, super blessed. Obviously, everything started small. All big things start small, and you can also have different income streams too if you follow some of the principles we're going to talk about today. Okay, my only ask, okay, is that you know, people follow along. Okay, so I post a lot of free content in my stories on Instagram. I post every other day, you know, wall posts. I literally have a full-time videographer. We're actually shooting tomorrow, and that's what I do. Okay, I want to give back to the world. I've been blessed by being able to stand on the shoulders of giants to learn a lot of these things. So do me a favor, open up your phones. I know you keep your phones on you 24/7 all the time anyways. And a lot of people are all about the gram. They have the Instagram app. So open it up. I'd love to see me get close to going over 5,000 followers today. Maybe take a picture of yourself, post it in stories, say, hey, go follow this guy if you want to find out more about investing, wealth, real estate, living your best life, all that sort of jazz. Because if you do, that's what the second picture here is all about. You guys will freaking rock. Okay. So let's dig in. Point number one, I've got seven points for people to realize about when it comes to wealth and growing your wealth, and then even a bonus point. Okay. So the first one is to make sure that you're always walking your own path, because it really isn't crowded at the top. Leaders always go first. I remember being young and just looking at what everybody else was doing. And, you know, it's interesting. Everybody actually gets the call to be a leader. Just not a lot of people actually take the call and take the action. So think back in your past life about the chances that you've had to be a leader. And did you actually take the chance? You don't always have to take every single chance, but make sure you're taking more than you're turning down. It's so important. Leaders definitely go first. That's why they're called leaders. And all big things do start small. I'm not sure if there's a lot of people here that follow, Gary Vee. So maybe, put your hands up or give me some yeses in the chat box if you follow Gary Vee. I'm actually going to be doing a video that's kind of a spoof of what Gary Vee does here. You'll see that coming up in the next couple of weeks. But, his very first tweet, the guy is like the GOAT of social media, the GOAT of creating content. And his first tweet ever had like 6 likes. Okay. Back on Facebook, 13 years ago, I was posting relevant content back then. I was posting longer form content on Facebook when, people were just taking pictures of their lunch and their dog, and I'm drinking beers and all that sort of stuff. Right. So I actually tuned out for a while. And then I had one of my mentors say, hey, you should actually get back on these platforms because you're actually the real deal and you can impact a lot of people. I said, are you sure? I tried that. It didn't work. Don't worry. People weren't ready for it. So go get back on. I took his advice and, basically it's been history since then. Okay. Been able to grow businesses tremendously just by sharing my journey. Okay. Make a note. Everybody wants to see your journey. If you're going to be an entrepreneur or you have plans of being an entrepreneur or inspiring other people, share the journey so other people can follow along. There's so many people in the world that would kill to do what you're doing. We're so blessed. We have so many opportunities. Like just think about this technology, being able to do what we're doing tonight. Okay, it's so important. And remember, if you do what everybody else does, you're going to get the same results that they do. And the cool thing about being a leader at a young age, it really is that hockey stick curve. Okay, it's that parabolic curve. You may not see a lot of the differences in the beginning. It's the same with paying down a mortgage. Okay, you're in the beginning, you're paying down just a lot of interest, and then it just turns into a parabolic curve. In those last 5 years, that the main chunk of the principal just gets totally wiped out. So again, it's time in the game when it comes to investing. Same in life. All these things catch fire. It's like growing bamboo. If you've ever heard the analogy about growing bamboo, it takes years for the roots to take and for the saplings to start coming up and for the shoots to start coming up. But once they do, bamboo can actually grow 12 inches a day. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. So these are all the things that I like to be teaching. And, if in doubt, true wisdom is actually being able to make things really simple. Okay. Complicated subjects and concepts, when they can be made really simple, that's true wisdom. And that's why I'd like to refer to Dr. Seuss a few times throughout the video. And you'll see that coming up. All right. Now, when it comes to walking your own path, lots of times people are curious about, well, what are some of the character traits of all successful people? So I just thought, based on my observations, I've been able to do a lot of inner circles. I don't know if people have ever heard of Tony Robbins, but I actually did 14 of Tony Robbins events in an 18-month period. It was like literally cramming all of his knowledge into your brain, over 900 hours in the room with the man. Such a blessing. He is so great. If you ever have a chance to go see him, even on a virtual conference, it's amazing. So yeah, these were definitely some of the things that I picked up from just being in these smaller rooms around high performing people. So successful people are, number one, they're hungry. Okay. They know what they want. They will literally keep working until they get it. Okay. Doesn't mean that you're obsessed, but it definitely means that you're hungry for results. They are extremely passionate about what they do. Okay. And when you're passionate about what you do, what you do actually won't feel like work. Okay, so one of my pieces of advice for you is to make sure that you're actually picking your career not just based on money, but based on how you like to do it. Okay, be the best in your field. It doesn't have to be a massively, you don't have to go make $500,000 a year. You can do extremely well if you just get above the average income here in Canada, here in North America. Okay, and then put your money to work for yourself. They're very competitive. Okay, maybe give me some smiles and some emojis if you're competitive. All right, the chat's going up all the time. Love it. And they just have crazy work ethic. Okay, they will literally outwork their competition. Okay, smart and by putting in the hours. And I love this quote here: the ladder of success is never crowded at the top. So don't think that it's when you get to the top, it's going to be like, that's all there is, or, I don't want to help other people get up there. It's actually the opposite. The more people that you help in life, you will get reciprocated to in the end. So, like I said, if in doubt, always refer to Dr. Seuss. Walk your own path. Why fit in when you're actually born to stand out? We're all different, okay? We're actually, we all are copycats of people that we look up to. And I'm also going to tell some more stories about that a little bit later on, but it's interesting. One of the books I read to my kids right now, I got 4 kids under the age of 8. And I don't know if people have ever read that book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. The people on this call tonight, you guys are going places, as opposed to that one page in the book that talks about the waiting area or the waiting room. So many people during COVID-19, that's literally 2 years ago, are still waiting. Okay, they're waiting for the results to be handed to them on the silver platter. And I got to tell you, that's not how life works. You need to go out there and make the change, be the change in the world, be the change in your network. We all have more impact than we realize that we do. Our reach, to be able to reach more people, it's so much easier now by just having a few free platforms like social media. And I'm definitely making sure that I hand this down to my kids. Okay, so part of my presentation here today is to keep you engaged, keep you laughing. The picture on the left is he's 6 years old now, but this was the day before Halloween. He was trying on his outfit. So he's a pumpkin, but he's also got his puddle jumper just to be safe, as well as his helmet. So it's just amazing. I mean, hand some of these lessons forward to your kids once you get to that age. Make sure that they understand that they can definitely walk their own path too. Okay. Would they dress up like this to church? Probably not the best idea, but don't be afraid to be a little bit weird sometimes. It's all good. All right. So point number 2, this was handed down to me a long time ago, that be opportunistic. And it's funny, I like to go on the internet and find these, icons, because I'm not a graphic designer. And sometimes for me to get the icons I need for my presentations, I have to go search them out. But every time I was Googling opportunistic, everything that was coming up was opportunistic viruses and opportunistic, COVID things, right? Because I guess, viruses do seek opportunities, right? They will see any hole in your immune system and go attack you. So, but I thought this was interesting. Just, this is something that millennials could relate to. There really is opportunity everywhere. And when you have the ability to create something from nothing, that is really true genius. Let's just let that soak in for a minute. A little drink break here. When you can actually create something from nothing, you will always do well in life. People could take away all your riches and it wouldn't matter. Make $1 million, bankrupt you the next day, and it wouldn't matter, because you know how to actually go out and make it happen again. So when it comes to great brands and recessions and things that we're going through right now, that's where some of the best brands in the world were also started. Okay, and I got a slide of that in the next on the next icon here. But let me give you some examples of what my dad taught me at a young age, and then by being in business, what I learned just about opportunities. Okay, so when I was young, we used to wake up on Saturday mornings and go look for pop bottles and beer bottles. Okay, because back then you could still actually get 10 cents for a beer bottle or a can. It's amazing how they haven't raised the price of that in like 3 or 4 decades. It's crazy. I feel bad for people these days. And pop bottles were like 25 cents. Okay. And things now are like 3, 4, 5 times more expensive. So it was like literally finding, 50 cents or $1 on the ground. We would go for walks lots of times for hours with a bag, go pick them up. And then we could actually go get rewarded at the store. Okay. Go and get something because, when you return a pop bottle, you could actually legitimately do something with 25 or 50 cents back then. So that was kind of cool that my father taught me how to be opportunistic. Always be looking around, be aware of your surroundings because there's literally opportunity everywhere. And there's this thing called your RAS. I'm not sure if people realize, maybe Patrick Lalonde's going to talk about this a little bit later. I don't want to steal the show, but the RAS is called the reticular activating system. Okay, write that down. And in a nutshell, what the RAS is it tells your brain what to pay attention to. So have you ever been, maybe looking for like a new shirt or a new jacket or a certain kind of a car, and you literally obsess about this, okay? You're seeing lots and lots of images about that item or thing. And then all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere. Oh, check it out. That person's got one. That person's got one, right? That's because they were always there to begin with because it's a popular item. You're not the only person that wants this item. But now your brain is actually turned on to noticing what you've actually told it that matters. Okay. And if you tell your brain to start noticing opportunities, you will start to see opportunities everywhere. Okay. And if you only get one thing from this talk today, I'd be blessed if that was the thing. So kind of cool, right? Look at Netflix, largest television network, has no cable. And if you look at the opportunities, I think it was Google had a chance to buy Netflix back when they were worth not very much, and still didn't buy it. It's kind of crazy. And also the opposite, right? Like Yahoo had a chance to sell out before they tanked and everything else as well. So here's some other examples of some of the best brands in the world that actually were born through hard times. Okay, hard times really do strengthen people. Steel sharpens steel. Okay, it's same with challenging times. Okay, if you can make this during challenging times, I know Chris and myself and everybody else that's done Student Works painting before in the past, we've worked through other recessions before too. And when you can get through them, you might have like a little dip in your sales or something. Maybe you actually have a little uptick, okay? But when you can at least maintain through hard times, man, you're gonna have a massive slingshot effect. So companies like Walt Disney, IBM, Microsoft, all these companies here, FedEx, were actually born through challenging times. That's why they're dominating right now. Okay, so maybe in the comment box here, let me know what some of your favorite brands are. Love to hear what you guys say about brands. Let me open up the chat for a minute here. Apple, Lulu, Tesla, LV, Student Works Painting, love it. YouTube, BMW, Red Bull. Red Bull's got some pretty crazy stuff on YouTube. I've actually got a good friend of mine. He flies for Red Bull Air Racing. It's awesome. All right. Is this good stuff or what? Let me know. Okay, just be careful if you read this slide here. You always got to be mindful. Just make sure you're watching the wording of your definitions, right? So I just thought this would be funny. It's kind of like, Johnny bit the dog or the dog bit Johnny. You got to make sure that you always get things done properly. And the devil is in the details. And this is, again, part of my comedy show. So hopefully people are laughing a little bit. Okay, point number 3. It's so important to have reserves. Okay, and a lot of what's happening to people when they do get stressed financially is because they were totally maxed out. They were being too aggressive with their investments or maxing out their credit card too much. And here's a point to make a note of. If you max your credit card out above 60% of the limit, it's actually going to affect your credit score. Your credit score is going to go down, okay? So don't carry more than a 50-60% balance on your credit card. And it's not just financially though. I want everybody here, maybe you can't relate to everything that I've done because you haven't done it yet, although I know you will do very well in the future, but everybody can relate to some of these points here. Okay, you got to have reserves when it comes to your body. Our body is actually like a big battery and we're constantly depleting it and we got to charge it back up, right? That's why sleep is very important. I wear this ring here. It's called an Aura ring. Okay, if you don't know what an Aura ring is, O-U-R-A, go look it up. This actually gives me my temperature, how many breaths I'm taking at night, how many steps I'm taking per day. Gives me a readiness score for the next day. It's awesome. And it weighs like 7 grams. It's so light. Okay, so you got to pay attention to your body. Your body really is your first wealth. Okay. Health being your immune system, I think it's very important. I'm not afraid of, catching a different version of the flu. I'm not trying to downplay what COVID is, but when you start to dig into some of the numbers, I'm not super sold, right? It really is just a different variation. And, if you're taking care of your body and your health, I know healthy people, they got this and it's like, yeah, it was kind of crummy for, 3, 4, 5 days, had a headache, wasn't feeling that well, stayed in bed a little bit, drank extra fluids, had a bit of a cough. And I guess I've had that kind of stuff too before in the past. If I think over the past 45 years, I've had some versions of that too. It's the people that haven't been making those deposits into their health that are getting hit the hardest. Okay, it's a real wake-up call. We can't just eat whatever we want and not move. We got to actually move our bodies and be healthy. Got to have reserves in your relationships. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about relationships in the past speakers here. Treat a relationship like a bank account. You got to be making deposits into that bank account, because once in a while we're going to slip up and we're just going to have a withdrawal automatically. Okay, but if you're already kind of on at zero and you're going to go into overdraft on the relationship, that's how relationships actually dissolve. It's not healthy. Your mindset, you have to have reserves when it comes to your mindset. If anybody here follows David Goggins, maybe just say yes in the chat box here. He is one of the most intense guys I know. Okay, David Goggins is inspirational. I don't know if we should all try to be like David Goggins, but like when you don't think you can go anymore, you're only like 40% of the way there. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to push my body and my mind to some of the limits. After I stopped my weightlifting career, I actually shifted 180 degrees and I went to like the endurance world. How much could I run in a day? How much could I cycle in a day? And I actually know the answer. I can cycle 425 kilometers in a day. And I was actually only on my bike for 18 hours because your legs can only endure what the butt can handle too. So with more training, I probably could have gone 500 or 600 kilometers. All right. So that's the mindset. Time. Who here feels like they're too busy? It's because you don't have enough reserves in your schedule. Okay. Here's the secret to running a successful business. Don't fill up your entire schedule with things to do. You always need to keep a percentage. I recommend 20 to 25% of your schedule just open, flexible, because it will fill up with things that need to get done. Okay. You will have some fires that you need to put out once in a while, and that's okay. But if you're filling your schedule up absolutely full, it's not going to happen. It's going to be like having 10 dogs to walk all the time. There just won't be any time to get ahead of the curve and be proactive. I'm a huge recommender of Stephen Covey's 4 quadrants. Make sure that you're actually in the most proactive quadrant, the planning quadrant. Okay. Planning. The return on planning, the return on thinking is so huge. So many people just don't do it. And now we get to finances, right? So that's the obvious one. If you're maxed out right now, you're going to be challenged. Okay. Guess what? When you want to get extra money from the bank, when you're trying to get extra mortgages, extra lines of credit, extra loans, it's the times where you actually need it the most, when you're kind of maxed out. That's when they won't give it to you, because they see that you're maxed out and they see it's affecting your credit score. So the time to actually get some of these reserves and make sure that you're living the proper life financially is when you don't even need it. Okay. So there's a tip for you. So that's my third point, having reserves. It's, why do you sprain an ankle? It's because your ankle is just not flexible enough. As soon as it goes back a little bit too far, you're going to have an injury. So that's why the best athletes make sure that they're always doing their prehab. It really does relate to everything. All right. Point number 4, be a problem solver. If you can actually go out in today's world and solve problems, not be afraid of problems, not create extra problems in your own life, but go and say, hey, the bigger the problem I solve, the bigger the payday I may get. Okay. So don't back down from problems. Obviously, they're going to be at your capability level. Maybe just always look for things that you can tackle. Don't be afraid to do hard things. Okay. Wake up call to some of the new generation. Doing hard, challenging things is actually amazing for you. Okay. Don't back down from doing hard things. All great things start small. everything that's worthwhile doing is always going to be challenging. So don't be afraid of challenges. Okay, because in the real estate investing world, there's a group out there. I've actually been fortunate enough to be on his channel a bunch of times. His main saying is actually like problems or profits. Most entrepreneurs should have a shirt that says this: problems or profits, or I solve problems. Is actually, I'm going to start a merch line here in the next couple of years. I think I get shirts that say I solve problems. Okay, so when you can solve problems, you will actually win the most. Okay, and when it comes to real estate investing, let's say if you have a house that just needs a lot of work, or maybe water's getting into the basement. Believe it or not, lots of times water gets in the basement not from foundation issues. It's simply just from the eaves troughs not getting the water away from the house. So once you do that, it's amazing what can change on that property. So that's point number 4, be a problem solver. Point number 5, we are actually all help-made. Okay, being self-made is actually a bit of a lie when you think about it. We all get to where we are because of great people that we've been able to stand on their shoulders. Okay, people that have helped to pull us up from where we were. And we frankly copy each other a little bit, right? We take a little bit from this, a little bit from that. There is actually no unique person anymore in the world. There's actually no unique problem in the world. Okay, they've already been experienced and they've already been solved. So that's a good thing to know, because then you can just go reach out in the world and go reach for the answers from the right people. Okay. Now, if you got one thing from my talk today, I know I keep saying that a few times, but if you could take one thing away from my talk, and this is sort of my signature thing when I talk to the university and college students about running their own business, is don't be afraid to ask for help. All right. So let's see people type that in the chat box. Let's see if we can blow it up a little bit. Don't be afraid to chat, or don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay. Let me see some repetition. Repetition is actually the master of all skill. And the only way that you can actually reprogram your brain once you get over the age of, let's say, 13, is actually from repetition. Okay. Repetition and intensity. Okay. Love it. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask for help. It's so important. Don't struggle more than you need to. I mean, don't also cry wolf all the time too and say, okay, well, oh, this was kind of hard. I struggled for 30 seconds. I'm just going to go email and text like 30 of my friends and see if they can do the work for me. No, that's not how life works either. Okay, but don't be afraid to ask for help. It's always it's the who's. Okay, I'm reading a great book right now from Dan Sullivan. It's called Who, Not How. Lots of times people are actually thinking about the strategy. I need to know how to do something, as opposed to, you know what? I don't know how to do this. It's not my superhero power. It's not my genius. Who could I go find that could actually help me get to the goal further, faster, with less effort? Okay, that's genius. All right. Making sure that, when you're building teams and you're putting the right people in the right seat in the bus facing the right direction, that's what we need to be doing as leaders. And I'm not sure if people have ever heard the Clydesdale analogy or the horsepower analogy, but, when you get two Clydesdales together, these are hardworking people, right? These are the studs or the studettes. When you put two of them together, it's not 1 + 1 = 2 horsepower. It's like 3 or 4, sometimes even 5. It's that synergy, okay? Like linking arms together. Sometimes people think that they need to do everything themselves, and it's such a fallacy, all right? Building teams, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with other people. Build a team. And remember, it's not always just the grades you make, but it's the hands that you shake while you're, when you're in school. It's one of the best networking opportunities, whether it's during COVID times or not. There's lots of great apps out there. You could actually be running your own Zoom chats. You could be doing your own Clubhouse chats and making sure that you're staying connected to your peer group, because these are going to be some of your buds and female friends for life. Okay, so make sure that you're staying connected. And so blessed to have been a part of the summer management program. Even though I haven't seen some of these people for decades or chatted, it's like picking up, just like riding a bike. We would hand our shirt off to each other when in need. It's so important. All right, so point number 5, again, remember, don't be afraid to ask for help. Now, where I actually got this analogy from was, I'm not afraid to give credit to all these thoughts and ideas, is actually from Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography. Okay, he's got a book called Total Recall. I haven't read the whole book, but I'm a big fan of Arnold. Whether you love him or not, he really was a pioneer, changed the industry of what things are doing in the in the fitness world and the movie world. And he just acknowledges like, hey, I got a lot of help. When I was coming up through the ranks in the 70s and 80s. And believe it or not, Arnold Schwarzenegger made his start in real estate investing. He had several different businesses. Bodybuilding actually didn't really pay very much. He had a mail order business, which would have been today's version of an Amazon drop shipping business. He had a bricklaying business. He bought real estate. Okay. And then he started getting into movies. So that's my friend Arnold. Okay. A couple more points here. Hopefully got some time for Q&A. But savers are actually losers. Now, let me explain that, all right? We all go through different seasons in our life. I think it's important to be a saver and to understand what it's like to save money. Okay, but if you save money and you don't invest it for your whole life, you're actually going to lose at the game of getting ahead. Okay, so the different seasons of life might be wealth, health, personal development, family. But in the beginning, when you're young and you're a student, my biggest advice is that you live within your means, okay? Even if you come from a lot of wealth, that's okay. Just live within your means. Chris has a great saying, live like a student as long as you can. I literally house hacked until I was like 32 or 33. Okay, so that means like you have an apartment or you have a house and you have your room and you have roommates, okay? There used to not be a term for it, but now it's actually called house hacking. So I did that until I was in my early 30s, all right? Because here's the thing, you need to make sure you're buying assets, not stuff, okay? I'm like all in on the real estate market. Okay, when I make money, I put it to work in the real estate market. So I can actually make what's called Sandman money or mailbox money. Like you make money as you sleep, okay? So I'm not trying to say this term to be derogatory, but you need to put your money to work like a slave. Work 24/7. It's money, it's not a human. Make sure it's working for you all the time to make more money, because that's how you're going to hit that parabolic hockey curve, okay? Now, what is the definition of an asset? Here's a writer downer for you. An asset is something that puts money in your bank account every single month consistently. A Rolex watch is not an asset. It's kind of like art. It's like a supply and demand model. If it's cool and people want it and they don't make a lot of Rolexes every year, it's going to increase in value. To me, that's a little bit like gambling, a little bit like an auction. It's collecting, okay? It's not true investing. It's not a true asset. And that's why cash is trash, okay? When they start to print a lot of money, during CERB and all these other, things that are going on, inflation, our money used to actually be tied to real value, okay? Silver and gold. And then Nixon stopped that in the late 60s, okay? I believe it was actually, they started taking the money out of circulation, and then 1971, they stopped it. Okay, so now money is it's just paper. It's really just digits. And what's happening during COVID is all this stuff's becoming digitized anyways. So cash is trash. I like assets. Assets are going to like hard assets that people actually need. All right, and I get this from Robert Kiyosaki. I was fortunate enough to be on a podcast right after Robert Kiyosaki, so I've actually had the chance to follow the stage of some giants in the past, which is awesome. All right, so point number 7. I don't want to rush through this too much, but the wealth triangle here, this is how you get RFR. And I'm kind of curious if anybody knows what RFR means. Throw some ideas in the chat here. Crypto, I'm actually not a big fan of crypto. I like the concept and stuff, but it's not backed by anything, right? It's just backed by a lot of computer work and that sort of stuff. Really effing rich. Yes, Cameron Clark, you are correct. Really freaking rich. So, and again, this is a really simple analogy. And even if you just do 2 sides of the triangle, I'm not sure people can actually see all the writing here. Hopefully it's big enough on your screen. But if you want to do really wealthy in life, you need to look at these different triangles. First of all, the high income skill. You need to develop a high income skill. And one of the easiest high income skills is actually sales. Okay, if you are good at sales, you will literally be able to get a job anywhere, almost any industry, because the fundamentals of sales are universal all throughout the world. Okay, we don't have enough time to talk about that, but it's very, very true. Prove me that I'm wrong, but you know, the fundamental of sales skills, they're the same around the world. Okay, and there's lots of other high income skills like copywriting, editing, knowing how to do digital media in this world of age, right? High level consulting, even like doctors and lawyers, being parts of being an entrepreneur are high income skills. Now, when you can take that high income skill because you're making over 6 figures a year, and then you can put it into a high return investment. I like real estate. Okay, some people do stocks, they do options and trading and whatnot. I like real estate because the way I do real estate, I know how to make 20 to 25, sometimes even 30% year over year cash on cash return on my investments. Okay, this has come through a lot of training. I've literally invested, gosh, man, over $300,000, $400,000 into myself, okay, to learn how to do these things. But the return has always been 10, 20x on that money, okay? So make your high income money. Don't go spend it all, okay? Don't live above your, don't go living above your means. Go and invest it in something that's going to return you, that's your net worth, right? That's your money working for you 24/7. And then if you can get the third part, that's when you just like take off like a rocket. That's a scalable business. That's what Chris teaches at the summer management program. How do you actually run a scalable business? And here's a little secret. You can't do it all yourself. You got to put the right people, bring on the right team members on your team. Okay. That's how you can get RFR, the wealth triangle. Okay. Let's go to the next slide here. Here's some examples. Okay. Number one would be sales, sales, sales. And then here's some other examples, right? Maybe shoot me a message which one you like here. Do you like marketing? Do you like sales? Do you like copywriting? Do you like building funnels, digital media? There are some real estate ones here, wholesaling, like flipping contracts to other people, flipping houses, doctor, lawyer, top 1% YouTuber, affiliate marketing. All right, cool. Thank you for all the shares here, everybody. And now I'm down to the last point, okay? This is your bonus point. Usually when I'm in person, I actually ask people, hey, who knows all the points, right? And I throw books out in the crowd and stuff like that. I can't really do that easily on Zoom. But, in life, we only have 2 gifts in life that we can give back to the world. Does anybody want to guess what these 2 gifts are that we can give to the world? All right, somebody says knowledge, reproduction. Love it. Time and money. Keep guessing here. Share the journey, opportunities, value. All right. Well, let me take the cat out of the bag or open up the box here for everybody. It is actually love and service. Okay. Now, love is not just who you're going to love on. That's important. It's also making sure that you do the things that you love. Okay. Lots of times people feel tired. They feel like they're living with a lot of friction in their life. That's because they're not making any time for themselves to actually do the things that they want to do. Okay. You're not going to miss if you spend an hour, hour and a half, sometimes even 2 hours doing stuff for you, make you a better version of yourself, do things to fill you up. Okay. When you're on an airplane, what do they say? Go help other people before you put on the oxygen mask? No. They say, make sure you put the oxygen mask on yourself before you go and help other people. And that's why you got to make sure you do the things that you love to do. Okay. Never lose that. And then service as well. Okay. Who can you serve in life? How many people can you help? That's also called impact. That's why I wanted to actually talk to everybody tonight, because it was a chance to go and impact a couple hundred people. And I know there's going to be hundreds and hundreds more that see this replay. So when you boil it all down, those are the 2 real gifts that we have in life that we're blessed to be able to have. So make sure that you're living that out by example. Hopefully people got some value out of this presentation here. Again, I know it wasn't nitty gritty about this is how you go buy real estate. It's actually not all that difficult to go buy real estate once you get a clear mindset and some of the other things you're going to learn on this training here tonight. But again, thank you so much. Make sure you're following along. If you want to get more value on a constant basis, I'm always dropping value on Instagram. And if you do follow me, that would make you a badass anyways. Okay. So hopefully we still have some time for Q&A. Tried to hit the 45 to 50-minute mark. It's 6:49. How'd I do, Chris and Johnny and everybody?
Great work.
Good or what?
Great. Yeah, great work, Kory. And I know Abaji has a question.
All right.
Hi, hello. I wrote down a bunch of questions I wanted to ask. My first question was regards to your point 5. That's about getting help. For me, that's like being the biggest problem, because I know my limitations and things. Like, I have ideas that are in the computer world, but it's not really my domain. How can you get help if you cannot financially like support the plan or the goal that you have? I think that's like being my biggest issue.
Love it. Can I give you some feedback?
Yes, please.
All right. So this is probably going to be pretty common because we have a lot of young people here on the call. But if you can't necessarily afford a service or a product, there's different things you can do. You can actually trade time with someone else. You definitely have value that you could give to somebody else, and you could reciprocate that, right? That's called barter, or that's called trading. You could literally go volunteer for someone else, even if you don't have a service that's valuable to them. It's like, look, what if I volunteered for you? You must have something I could do. And then in exchange, could you make me some graphics or some logos or whatever it might be? But you'd be surprised if you go on, Upworks or, Fiverr, which it's not really Fiverr anymore. It's like 20 or 50, but, it's getting a little bit more expensive. But don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes I had an ask a couple of weeks ago. I was looking for a Excel spreadsheet in Ninja. I said in my stories, and I had like 20 people reach out to me just because I've been giving and giving and giving value, right? So when you're a person that gives a lot of value and you have an ask once in a while, people are just gonna be like, I want to help you because you're a go-giver. So there's a couple ideas for you, and hopefully that helps to just get you thinking a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Awesome, Kory. Great answer. Beryl.
Hey, Kory, how's it going?
Excellent.
Beautiful. Yeah, so one of my practical takeaways that I took from your presentation was the whole idea of keeping a percentage of your day free. So I've never done that. So I was just wondering what that might look like in sort of like an average person's life.
Well, let's say if you're booking appointments, I mean, there's a few days of the week where I do have a very full day. Okay, like my Mondays and Tuesdays are very full. I front load my week. But if you know that you can realistically only work 60 to 80 hours a week, I mean, you can't work that many hours and be a high performer, right? You got to sharpen the saw. But just don't always book your schedule up absolutely 100%. Make sure you're booking in time for yourself too. Like those appointments, like Chris said, when you wake up and you're actually living in integrity with every single appointment that goes in your calendar, you're not just like brushing it off and going, oh, I'll work out later. Well, guess what? Lots of times later doesn't really come. Okay. So it doesn't mean you need to work 3 jobs. Sometimes it just means that you need to have some dead time in your schedule so you can actually do some strategic thinking. Okay. Like when I drive in the car, I don't listen to music and all that sort of stuff. I'm either listening to a podcast or I'm actually thinking, what are my outcomes for the day? How do I want to impact people? How do I want the day to actually go? Yeah. So that's, I guess, like, are you a student right now or are you working full time?
Yeah, I'm a student. I run my own painting business as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say in any given week, you got to make sure all the appointments earn the right to be in your schedule too, right? But whenever I was, I don't know, the most estimates I've ever did in a week one time was like 25, which is a lot. Not every week can be like that, but at least block them out so that you've themed out your different parts of your day. Okay. And lots of times you just won't have enough to fill yourself up 100%. And here's the other takeaway. You can't say yes to everything. Okay. One of the things I gave up when I was running a business was, that's when I would actually hang my weightlifting belt up for the season. I'd gone through my competitions. I'd say, you know what, I'm going to go on a maintenance plan, which is working out twice a week. I'm just going to go crush it with Student Works Painting. That's why I was always in the top 10, top 5 of the company. So sometimes being successful in life, it's not about all the things that you add to your life. Write this down, everybody. Being successful in life is actually a subtraction game. Lots of times. It's what you say no to, because every time you say yes to something, You're saying no to something greater, something better. So a lot of people here have to-do lists. I think I'm going to challenge people here to have a not-do list. What are things you shouldn't be doing anymore? What are the time wasters? Not just the time wasters, but just the things that you could be delegating. Okay, and you don't need to have a lot of money to delegate. Sometimes there's people that just love to do the things that you have for them to do. Okay, so I'm not
That's
sure if you have
fantastic.
this home, but you know, you will learn this as a leader, like how to delegate and be effective with your time. It's very important.
Well, Kory, just awesome coaching. What I'm going to do, because we've had Brian jump on, is first of all, I wanted to recognize you for being, again, just such a go-giver. The golden thread that I got was and I continue to believe is R&D, which is rip off and duplicate. You know, go and take the best ideas. You know, we're all standing on the shoulders of great people. Again, all the books you read, all the people you've been influenced by. I know I've been influenced by Brian Scudamore, and so learn from them and move forward. And Beryl, just in terms of your coaching, set up a coaching session with me. I'd be happy to dig more into what Kory was sharing. So again, Kory, you rock. Thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do is, thank you. So what I'm going to do is introduce Brian. I know John's going to put Brian on. And Brian, thank you for jumping in and spending time with us. I know it's National Entrepreneurs Week, and you have created so many entrepreneurs and been part of creating entrepreneurs. You know, why don't we start there and just how you see, you know, entrepreneurs in National Entrepreneurs Week.
Awesome. Well, hello, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me from my basement to your home somewhere. I love entrepreneurship. I just think it's the most rad job in the world. I've done this for 32 years and gotta say, I love just about every day of it. And yes, it's National Entrepreneurship Week. And Chris, I think you're too kind, giving me too much credit that I've started entrepreneurs. I think all I've done is, is planted a little acorn that's grown into a big oak tree. I got to be the one planting the seed, having the idea, and watching others come on board who have been attracted to what we're doing and be a part of building greatness. It started as one truck back in 1989. We've grown the business now to, I don't know, we've lost count, but over 2,000 trucks. We've expanded into Wow One Day Painting, a business where we paint homes in a day, and then Shack Shine, where we do house detailing, windows, gutters, power washing, and so on. And combined revenues, not trying to brag, but just giving a sense of how it's grown over 32 years, $500 million. And it just started again with one truck. So I think of all of you, and I'm inspired that you have all started businesses, and some of the tips and wisdom Kory shared, I could certainly relate to. You start to get a few gray hairs and you realize you learn a thing or two. And, Kory and I have a lot of similarities. And anyways, awesome to be here. And that's sort of my tiny little story in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And we introduced you ahead of time, just to sort of save your time and maximize your time on value. So I know, it's one of the things about your story, having read your book and read a lot about you, Brian, and knowing you is talk about, dropping out of school and going to university and just that whole push and pull thing. Because I know sometimes we've got a bunch of leaders who are involved in school, and just what your personal experience was.
Yeah, so I always feel it's an awkward one where, here I am talking to people that are in school about my dropout story. So don't go tell your parents that, oh, Brian Scudamore told me to drop out, because I'm not telling you to drop out. A little bit about me personally. I grew up as a kid that went from 14 schools from kindergarten to university. So started off in San Francisco. My father, liver transplant surgeon, we moved to Canada, back home for him. Went to a ton of different schools, moved around, got kicked out of one of the schools and sent to a boarding school because I was a bad kid. Didn't finish high school, talked my way into college. I went to 4 different colleges. So from kindergarten to high school, kindergarten to college, 14 schools. The only diploma I have, true story, is kindergarten. it was because I was so ADD. I still am today, although I noticed Beryl about to take a photo. Go for it. I see squirrels. I see all these ideas, and sitting in school just doesn't work for me. And so I love to learn. It was just in college, it wasn't a great fit for me. I wanted to learn about entrepreneurship, so I wanted to learn by doing. And when I sat down with my father, who's a liver transplant surgeon, he's done more schooling than anyone I know. I said, "Hey, Dad, have a seat. I want to share some good news with you. I'm 3 years into my university degree." And he said, "Yeah, what's the good news?" I said, "I'm dropping out of college." And he said, "How is that good news?" And I said, "Because I got this business that's working and I want to learn more about how to run a business. I'm learning more running one versus studying in school." And I made a tough decision. And now, of course, my dad, I've got kids now, 3 kids of my own. I might have felt the same way as him. He didn't see it as good news. I saw it as opportunity. He said, "Finish school. You can always go run your business later." I said, "My business opportunity might not be there. Someone might beat me to it." And so, my dad's on side with me today and appreciates the differences. And we've gone different paths. But I've learned by talking with others, by learning from other mentors, by asking questions. I saw Kory said, you got to ask for help. I still to this day ask for help. I reach out to people constantly and say, "Here's the challenge, here's the opportunity. What do you think?" So find your way to learn. And if it isn't books and it isn't school, find it somewhere, but be curious.
And so, Brian, I know you mentioned ADD, and I know there's a bunch of tags potentially that some of our leaders here on the call or listening later will have. Oh, they said I'm this, or they said I'm that, and a lot of times it's seen as a negative. So how do you look at your ADD, and how do you look at that in your life?
I mean, for me, ADD is a gift. I wouldn't medicate my ADD for anything. Like, for me, it creates challenges. So my wife's like, "Brian, turning my head, are you listening? Are you focused?" And I'm always seeing these shiny objects, but someone's got to see those objects and see those opportunities and go, "Wow, I see things a little bit differently." So I think I've learned, I was taking a program at MIT, a business program for year after year after year, a bunch of entrepreneurs, 60 of us, and it was called Birthing of Giants. Learning from other entrepreneurs. And one of the speakers that came in was Dr. Howard Newell, and he's the top ADD doctor researcher on the planet. He came into our program for an hour and he said, "Do you hear that?" He goes, "You could hear a pin drop." He goes, "You guys are so focused and listening and hanging on my every word because you're interested, because you can relate, because you're choosing to be present." He goes, "You're ADD, but that doesn't mean you can focus. You're choosing what you want to focus on." So for me, it's how do we find the opportunities in life that capture our focus? If it's entrepreneurship, which it is for me, hey, I can focus all day long. I sometimes have to figure out how to turn it off. I think a lot of us are ADD in the world, and these things don't help. I mean, TikTok and Snapchat and whatever kids are using these days, it's like, it's a tough world with social media and with this constant pinging of things going off. But I loved what Kory said, and I'm a big fan of say no. Figure out what you're saying no to so you can make room for the bigger yes. Figure out what's getting in your way and becoming a distraction. And when we say yes and we want to try and be of service and try and help others, that's great. But you still have to pick and decide what priorities you want to stick to. Otherwise, it'll control you.
Yeah. And what about building a team, Brian? And just having players on your team who maybe slow you down or who provide that balance when you're chasing squirrels. I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, picking the right people, which is the most important thing I think in any business, finding the right people and treating them right. It's picking people who are different from you. And so we've learned as a business, we've got probably 500 people now between our 2 head offices, and we look for diversity. diversity of opinions, character, backgrounds, introverts, extroverts, different nationalities, you name it. The more diverse, the better. I don't want people that look and feel and act like me. I mean, first of all, could you imagine 500 ADD squirrel chasers? I mean, it would be nuts, right? Literally. So to me, it's finding people that can challenge me. So my president and COO, Eric Church, 9 years in the business with us. Hopefully he's around forever because he's absolutely unbelievable. When I present an idea to Eric, he goes, that's a good idea, but not right now. Or that's a good idea. Maybe it should bump another priority. He's the rigor and the discipline. He comes from a military background originally. And he's the one that's able to say it's a great idea, but not right now, or it's a great idea for years down the road. But it helps to prioritize to say, you know, for me as a fire ready aim type, you know, I go quickly, and that's what visionaries and idea people like to do. You need someone to balance to say, yes, that's an awesome idea, let's do it, or let's put it later down on the list and look at it when we're through some of the challenges that we've got on our plate right now.
So Brian, I know, you know, obviously it's a different space running a $500 million business, you know, so we've got mostly just some, you know, 20-year-olds on the phone. So take us back to Rubbish Boys when you were just getting started with your truck. How did you see the opportunity? What were you thinking? Were there other competitors? You know, take us back to you getting started in your business.
Yeah, well, when I initially started the business, I was in a McDonald's drive-through. There's a beat up old pickup truck in front of me with plywood sides. I'm trying to figure out how to pay for college because clearly my parents weren't going to fund an education that they knew I wouldn't complete. And I said, okay, I took my $1,000 in the bank, $700 on a pickup truck, an old F-150, built plywood sides, and it put the name The Rubbish Boys, or I put the phone number 738 Junk along the side. And I really said, okay, I'm going to drive down alleys and laneways and I'm going to start hauling junk. And that basic business model funded my way through my education as far as I went. I made money. I broke even in 2 weeks of running the business. I started small, but I didn't have the professionalism that I knew one day I could. I started to see this vision for what if we built the FedEx of junk removal, the clean, shiny trucks, friendly uniformed drivers, on-time service, upfront rates. And the idea started to grow. And literally I went from 1 truck to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Every year I would add a truck. And as things really started to grow and I could see this vision of a future business, I started to buy newer trucks. I started to have what I saw come to life in real time. And for me, it was what started as a way to pay for college. The vision evolved to making a difference, finding great people and inspiring them to do great work. Now, some of you might go, well, junk removal, there's nothing glamorous or fun or sexy about that. It was about building something bigger and better together. It was about taking an industry that was very fragmented, mom and pop, in need of professionalism, that we could really step things up in. And so when I looked at the business, it was all about an opportunity. How did I see the opportunities at a small stage? It was step by step. Opportunity to go from 1 truck to 2. Opportunity to go from 2 to 3. Opportunity to drop out of school and give my dad the good news so I could focus full time. Opportunity to learn from others about franchising and what that might bring to our world. So they say these overnight success stories sure take a long time. You know, it took us 32 years to get to $500 million. The next $500 million will only take us about 4 years. Things ramp up. It took us 8 years. It took me 8 years to get to $1 million in revenue. It took our first franchise partner in Toronto, Paul Guy, 1 year, his first full calendar year to get there. And then we did $1 million in revenue just for 1-800-GOT-JUNK today. So 8 years it took me to get there. Now we do that in a day. That's time, that's momentum, things ramp up. So I think opportunities when, you know, if I'm looking at you and you're running smaller businesses, kudos to you because it's a lot harder to run a small business. Running a $500 million business is a lot easier than running a $100 million business, easier than running a 10 million or $1 million. And so you're doing the hard work now, but if you learn and you do it right and you get some gray hairs and all that sort of stuff, you lose some hairs, whatever's going to happen, you find out that you can take that, and that knowledge is power, and you build momentum. So I think the last thing I'll say on this topic is what I learned at an early age, which worked for me. Someone who's not very focused, who's very ADD, I learned the power of focus. I took my junk truck in the early years and I said, we can do window washing. We could do power washing. We can do small moves. We can do painting. I mean, we had people and trucks. We could do anything. But it was, if you try and be all things to all people, you quickly start to lose what people know you for. And not only were we, losing our momentum to be the world's greatest and now largest junk removal company, nobody knew what we were known for, and it was confusing. So it was really the power of focus is what it took time to figure it out. But once we got there, that's been real power. I waited 22 years before I started my second business in the painting space, which you all know very well. And Wow One Day Painting has been fantastic for us, but it's taken a lot of time to figure out how to get into a second business and do it right.
Yeah. And so all your businesses really, to me, Brian, seem to be about professionalizing industries that are, on the whole, not run all that well, like not really professional, not, again, clean uniforms, well systemized, well functioning. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. It's even if I look at the names. So if I look at Wow One Day Painting as an example, I bought a company called One Day Painting, where they came in and did the floor to ceilings, moldings, trim, all in a day. And I was blown away. And the feeling I was like, wow. And I bought the company, we franchised, and here we are today. And so I'd say all of our brands are about a feeling. So if I take Wow One Day as an example, when we paint someone's home in a day and take away the disruption that could normally be involved, customers are blown away. And it's every opportunity with every customer is a chance to do something special. So I was telling a story to a couple of franchise partners earlier today coming into the system, and they didn't know this guy, John Barrows, in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And this guy, in his first year of business a couple of years ago, it was US Thanksgiving. He's out there giving a quote on, just before Thanksgiving, giving a quote on painting someone's home. And they said, we'll do everything but the kitchen. And they said, why not the kitchen? And they said, our budget's a little tight and we can't get it done. And he said, aren't you doing Thanksgiving? Aren't you going to be having family in the kitchen? They said, yeah. And John said, I can't have you because of budget, not complete the house and have guests over. He goes, I'm just going to do it. We'll call it a day. And he did that part for free. Now, we're not in the business of not making money, but he saw an opportunity and a connection to someone. And that story has spread. The community has talked about it. And I'm sure it's brought him more business as a result. So it's not just even professionalizing, but bringing a level of human connection to people and just saying, hey, when we shine your shack, and we put up your Christmas lights and do all that sort of stuff, there's a feeling that customers have that they're left with the business service that we've provided.
Awesome. And I know. Actually, one of my good friends and an alumni of our business was telling me about a story that he shared and impacted him, Govind Yayaraman, about one day going in and saying, "Gee, I've got the wrong people," and you let go of a group of people. So if you could tell that story and what caused that and what you learned from that.
Yeah. So we make mistakes. I wrote a book on it. I'll show you the book, and for good questions, we'll figure out how to get you a book at the end. WTF, called Willing to Fail. And when I wrote that book, the title of the book didn't come out until after I'd written the book. Because what I realized is my 32 years of stories was growth, failure, growth, failure, growth, failure. Every failure took me to a bigger, better, happier place. So one of the biggest mistakes I talk about in the book, a failure that I'm not proud of, but a failure that I learned something from that really helped shape us as a $500 million business, is in 1994, 5 years into the business, 1 year after I've dropped out, I think I've got everything figured out. I'm at $500,000 in revenue. I've got a team of 11 people, but I stopped having fun in my business. And I started to go, why am I spending time hiding in a private office? I'm not connecting with my teams after work and having a beer with them. I don't want to be around them. And I realized I found the wrong people for me. I didn't have the happy, friendly, clean-cut people that I wanted to help professionalize this space. So I had 11 employees. One bad apple spoils the whole bunch. I think I had 9 bad apples, and I thought the other 2 are still maybe a risk. I'm going to get rid of everybody. So I started a morning meeting, as we usually do, would bring everyone together before they go out in the trucks. And I started with 2 words. I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I've let you down, that I haven't brought on the right people or given you the love and support you've needed to be successful. And unfortunately, I'm going to let everybody go. I didn't know what else to do other than start again. So these are 11 people that most of them were bigger than me. And we're in the same room together. And I felt bad and I felt scared. But I said, I don't know what else to do. And because I shared it with them with a heart and I was authentic, people understood. I've heard from some of them years later. And they said, no, you handled it well, Brian. We get it. And people moved on and were freed up to a better opportunity for them. But what it taught me is, okay, if I didn't bring on the right people, who are the right people for me? And so still to this day, years later, we've learned, to us, finding the right people and treating them right is everything. And how we find the right people is I look at all of you and I say, how do you find friends? Nobody really overthinks it and go, hey, Chris, so what kind of beer do you drink? And what do you do on weekends? And check. You just get to know somebody and you connect with them. So when we're in an interview with someone, the question we ask is, would I have a beer with you? You and I have hit it off. We'd obviously have a beer together. We've had many chats before.
Yeah.
Just, do you like the person? Are they interesting? Are they interested? Are they connected to your vision of the future? None of these, crazy interview questions that just don't make sense, that are so hypothetical. And by distilling it down, we've been much more careful to find people, very selective, and our culture is unbelievable as a result. It's not perfect, but man, are we having fun. Good people.
Yeah. And so I know you've got a beer and barbecue process. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So it's really, I needed an analogy to give to people in my company to say, listen, I think we overcomplicate the interview process. Now, don't get me wrong. We have a long interview process. If we're interviewing someone at the senior leadership team, 10, 11, 12 interviews, it can be a lot. We want to make sure we get it right. But the interview process with people is, we say, first ask yourself as the interviewee, would I have a beer with the person? The beer test is, do I like this person? Do I think John Cameron and I could sit down and have a pint together? And look, he's got a great smile. And, it's just, do you connect with someone and do you like them? Do you feel like they would add value to the business? But the barbecue test then is a bit of a bigger one, where you go, how would they fit in this whole house party? If we were having a company barbecue together, again, we've got lots of diversity of opinions and people and backgrounds. We don't want everyone to be the same. We have introverts and extroverts, but we want people to just go, yeah, this party works. I see a vision here. I see something special here. And do they feel a part of our tribe? And I look at Cameron Clark, he's wearing the logo on his toque, like total tribe guy, right? Perfect fit. So do people fit? And, even our CFO, here we were looking for a chief financial officer, a big role in the business. We spent all our time asking about culture and fit. We let KPMG, our auditors, can the guy do the job? And so it's really important, I think, just to get it right. When you don't get it right, that's when I stopped having fun in my business, when I had to let all 11 people go. We went from a concept of having private offices to a full-on open office environment. No private offices for anybody, not myself, not our president, because we want to be out in the action and get to know people. Now, clearly during COVID, we're all in our own separate little boxes, but it's fun when you've got a culture that works.
Absolutely. It sounds fun, and I've heard the reviews. You've got great reviews of your people. So obviously we're facing COVID now, but I know you were really challenged in the last economic downturn. So what happened? What lessons did you learn? What lessons did 1-800-GOT-JUNK learn?
Yeah, it's a good one. The downturn in 2007, 2008 was much harder for me personally. COVID has been harder on humanity and our freedoms, but everybody's in it, the whole planet, right? When I looked at our economic meltdown, my business, I just about lost the business. After 20 years of building my baby, so to speak, we almost bankrupted the company. On top of the economic challenges, I brought on a leader who I thought was going to be my president and COO that would take it to the next level. And I brought someone in from Starbucks. And this person wanted to move from Seattle, the head office, back to Canada, where they were from, took a big pay cut to come work with us, and had all the skills and abilities and pedigree, brand name, everything. I was just like, I've hit the jackpot. I didn't spend enough time and didn't do the beer and barbecue test. I was more impressed with, like, this person's unbelievable. I don't even need to find out more. And what I didn't realize was that this person had run 30,000 employees underneath them in Starbucks. And it was a very different deal than the stage we were at. And I don't think this person saw value in me as an entrepreneur who's ADD, who thinks some crazy ideas and needs to be told no sometimes, and needs to also be told, yeah, that's a great idea, let's go do that. There wasn't a partnership there. Now, we got along well, but we didn't really work in lockstep. And 14 months later, had to get that person out. Realized my sort of challenge in that equation. And what highlighted that it was a big problem was, here was this person leading the charge where our visions weren't in sync. The economic meltdown was happening. We dropped $85 million in revenue in 1 year, and just about lost the company. And so it was really me going, okay, maybe this is all on me. Maybe this is my leadership weakness, that I just can't build the right team. And my franchise partners were telling me that I failed. And so it was a really, really hard time to go through, but I ended up soul searching. I took out a piece of paper and one line down the middle, and I wrote on one side all the things I love to do that the business needs, that I'm good at. On the other side, the things I don't like to do that I'm bad at, but the business still needs. And I said, how do I find someone that can do all those things I'm bad at? And that's where I found Eric Church. I put out a little sort of vision statement of all the things I was looking for. And it's worked out magically. I mean, I get to be the vision, the culture, the sort of cheerleader, the brand guy. He's the financials, the team builder, the coach, the leadership development person. He does all the stuff that I'm just not very good at. And it's been this yin and yang partnership. I mean, I have not met one leader in my life who can do all the things a business needs. And so I think the best thing a leader needs to do, and you know this clearly, is ego aside and find the person who can complement your strengths and weaknesses.
So true. So true. Yes. I love that. So resonates with me. So one of the other things that you've done is a painted picture at different times in the development. And I'd love for you to share that story with these amazing leaders.
Yeah. So, after 32 years, if I think back to what's the one thing I've done in my business career, which I'm far from done, but what's the one thing I've done and learned that I feel most proud of, or feel has been the most impactful in my life and in the lives of others? And that's developing this concept of the painted picture. Now, having a vision, this isn't something that I created. I mean, it's existed in the world forever, but I'll tell you my story and how I came across this. 1997, about 8 years into business, I'm at $1 million in revenue. I'm feeling like I'm in a doom loop, and, AKA some depression and sort of a downward spiral. I'm going, okay, I got $1 million business, but I don't know if I love my business. It's junk removal. I don't know what to do with it. I don't have the brains. I didn't finish school. I don't have the money to grow it if I could grow it. And so I was feeling pretty crappy. And I joined the entrepreneur organization and surrounded by people with bigger businesses, and was comparing myself to other successful people, which is not a good thing to do. It just makes you feel like garbage. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to my parents' summer cottage. They had a little shack on the water. And it was the end of the summer. And I'm like, okay, I'm depressed. I don't like this. I'm going to take out a sheet of paper and I'm going to write what pure possibility could be. What could the future look, feel, and act like if I could only imagine? And so I started writing out this very interesting sort of document that became very powerful. And I said, it started with, we will be in the top 30 metros in North America by the end of 2003. Why 30? There was one city where we started in Vancouver. There's 30 that are bigger than Vancouver. Logic tells me it should work in all those markets. So I said, we'll be in the top 30 metros in North America. We'll be the FedEx of junk removal, clean, shiny trucks, friendly uniformed drivers. We will be on the Oprah Winfrey show. I came up with all these crazy things that I said we would do. And in looking back, it was a pivotal moment for me because in reading that painted picture, that one page, double-sided, what the future would look like, immediately took me out of the doom loop and gave me direction as to where I was going. I looked at this painted picture and I started to get sort of chills that I can see the future. And so as an entrepreneur, all of you as leaders, you take a vision, you share it with people, and you see if it attracts, if it gets them excited and engaged. And so when I took my painted picture, I literally started sharing it with the world around me, small company, and it divided people into two camps. It took half the group or a little less who said, I don't know, Brian, I think you're smoking some hope dope here, like Oprah Winfrey, FedEx, like, come on. And the other half said, wow, this is interesting. I think I might want to be a part of this. So I had half the group that eventually left the company because they didn't see my vision. The other half who said, I want to be a part. And many people stuck around for years and years. We did get to the top 30 metros in North America. We got there 6 weeks early, which is, we didn't crystal ball the future. We said, what does it look like? Rally people that are excited about it and believe that they can help us get there and do everything in our power to get there. We were 90 days out from hitting the top 30 metros. And Lori in my franchise development department comes to me and he says, hey, listen, we're at 28 to 30. The painted picture says 30. What are we going to do here? And I said, well, what are the remaining two? And he said, Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. And I said, okay, let's make a plan. Let's start going to the press. Let's ask around. Let's figure out how to do it. And we made it happen. So we didn't leave our vision to chance. We literally got out there and worked our tails off to make it happen. So again, the one thing I've learned, painted picture, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I remember as a kid in college, you'd ask people, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. Well, why? Oh, my dad says I should be a lawyer, or I've been watching Grey's Academy and it says I should be a doctor. I mean, whatever the case is, people don't necessarily think of what's in their heart and they really want to do. And when I locked onto that vision of building and growing something and watching leaders be a part of what we're building, something so special, that's when the magic happened. And there's been no looking back.
Brian, I what I really appreciate is, just authenticity and your vulnerability of these are the thoughts that I was having, like, hey, here's a really successful entrepreneur, people would think at those times, right? Like, hey, you're running $1 million business. And so this is how really successful people feel. You may not think so, this is somebody sharing his private life. The public life would have looked differently. And this is what all of us feel as leaders. And so then again, we rally people around, we focus on what we can do rather than what's not working. And I so appreciate that, it just makes such a difference. So,
yeah, thank you. I think a lot of people, especially when we're younger, I remember I was one of these like, oh, I'm going to have a Porsche before I'm 30 type. I mean, I literally had that as a goal. I never bought a Porsche and I never will, because I realized early enough along that who cares about the Porsche? I'd rather rent a Porsche. I've driven a Porsche in Vegas on a track and got to go real fast. And that was way better than owning one and so on. So I think it's understanding what makes you tick. And when I realized how unimportant money is, like you need a certain amount of money to do the things you want to do and travel and freedom and so on. But when I realized it's more about making meaning, not money, that's when things started to shift for me. And then it was almost like I couldn't stop the money. And once I shifted my focus to others and more of a servant leadership style, the money just kept coming and coming. And then it gives you a chance to do philanthropic work or invest in others and, lead to opportunity that makes everybody happy. But it's, that's the one thing, if I look back earlier days of my life, I'm like, could I have figured that out a little bit sooner?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I know one thing that you've learned is importance of asking, can you imagine?
Yeah. So when I did that painted picture and that vision, Cameron Harold, who was our COO at the time, he took us from 2 million to 106 million. It's a good story I talk about in the book about firing your best friend. Fortunately, we've been able to stay really, really good friends. We talked last week and we talk all the time. But Cameron said he couldn't see visions. He goes, I'm the executor. You tell me the vision, I'll reverse engineer and make it all happen. I said, you can think about vision. You can imagine big ideas. He goes, no, seriously, I can't see pictures. And I said, okay, humor me for a second. If you could go anywhere in the world tomorrow, if money wasn't an object and you could travel anywhere, where would you go? And I don't remember his answer, but he told me some tropical location. What are you drinking? Who are you with? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And I took him through a version of my painted picture in 2 minutes. And I'm like, you just told me exactly your dream vacation. Why can't you tell me what your dream business looks like, or your dream culture, or your dream team? It's the same thing. You describe what it looks like at a point in the future. And envisioning the future, I mean, it is crazy, but it's kind of like magic. So here's a little side story for you with Shack Shine. We did this Can You Imagine wall for Shack Shine. So we had our big conference in person, and someone said Shack Shine needs a Can You Imagine wall, like what we did at the head office, the Junction, where we started to put bold ideas up there. And sorry, let me go back for a second. At the Junction, our head office, I had put the first Can You Imagine up. I said, I want to not just show Cameron how to create vision, but I want to inspire other people in the company to think big, bold ideas. So we said we'd be on the Oprah Winfrey show and put my name below it. We had someone that said, we're going to be featured in a Harvard business case study, and they put their name below it. We're going to be on Dr. Phil. We're going to be, all these cool things. And so we started listing all these things, and eventually whoever put their name there would go out and somehow make it happen. So we needed a wall for Shack Shine. And so one of the ones I got to contribute was, can you imagine if Shaquille O'Neal, if we shined Shaq's Shack, right? It just fits with Shack Shine. So I kind of put it up there to be silly and be fun. About 4 or 5 months ago, I get a text from someone in EO, the entrepreneur organization, who says, oh, I just heard Shaq speak. This guy's unbelievable. I didn't realize who he was as a business person beyond MBA. And I said, wow, really? I didn't know. I said, do you think you might be able to introduce me to someone who could have us get him out to speak at our conference? So he speaks at our conference virtually this year. And the deal was, I said, hey, listen, can I chat with you for a few minutes at the end? And so I told him about our Can You Imagine? Not only will we somehow be able to shine his shack, it's a big shack, so it's going to be expensive. But,
you bet it will be.
But he goes, listen, I want to invest in your company. Now, I wasn't looking for investors. I said, how about us creating a fund where maybe we take some disadvantaged, people who, some single moms, some people from different walks in life that haven't had opportunity, haven't had money, that could start businesses, that have all the skills and drive, but don't have the resources. Maybe we do a fund where we help to invest in some people in our franchises. He comes from the franchise world. He owns a ton of franchises all over the place. So he's like, I love the idea. Let's talk about it. He goes, I'll come to Vancouver and visit you and the whole bit. Now, none of that's been set up, but I'm sitting there going, because I put an idea on the wall about shining his shack, I might actually sit there and have a beer with Shaquille O'Neal, right? Like you think big things, you dream big stuff, you never know what might just happen. The guy gives me his freaking cell phone number and he goes, text me and we'll set up this next chat. So some things can seem like, to me, that seems just ridiculous that that could ever happen.
Yeah.
But you just never know. And so for everyone here, it's what are the possibilities of the big things that you can dream, that you could just sit there and go, could you imagine if? I've had people create can you imagine walls in their home, or they take a blackboard or something and they start writing big stuff. And somehow the art of writing it down and committing it to a decal or chalk on the wall, it starts to connect your mind to, I got to pay attention to these things, so that when someone goes, hey, this guy just spoke and you had something on your can you imagine wall about him, you should probably make a decision in that direction to make something happen.
So awesome. So awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Brian one question, and then we're going to ask for questions, and just to sort of throw that open, and then best questions get some books, and we'll figure that out. So the question I had was just about the whole willing to I'm just a huge believer in culture and systems. So talk to me more about systems and how you've built such fantastic systems, in your businesses.
Yeah, so I read a book by a gentleman named Michael Gerber, and the book is called The E-Myth Revisited. There you go, Lewis. Yeah, Lewis has it. So great book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. It is an awesome, awesome read. It tells you how to build your business out in a systematized way. What Michael says, and I've gotten to know Michael over the years, he's 83 now, and we talk once or twice a year. He's awesome. He's come in and seen our business, and he's like, oh my gosh, you systematized your business exactly as I saw it in my book, which felt cool. And I said, it was your book that inspired us to create it this way. What I did is I took every best practice in our business and said, it's got to be written down to one page that describes why we do something, but then step by step by step, how you do everything. How do we answer the phones in the call center? How do we treat our customers? What is it like when you show up on the front door site, and to greet a customer? Warm smile, you shake their hand, or you used to be able to, all that kind of stuff. But it's like, what are all the things step by step so that you're consistent, so that you're building a remarkable service, so that everybody can really run a business in the same way that you would. And so the E-Myth way was really the way I did it. We take our best practices, and when they can get better, if someone has a better idea, we tweak that best practice. So that it's like a living document that just things continue to get better for everyone, ultimately our people, and then our customers.
Fantastic. So John Cameron.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Brian, thank you so much for coming. It's definitely a dream. And actually, like when we were creating this event, the could you imagine if was, could you imagine if we got Brian Scudamore to come and speak with us? Listen to all sorts of podcasts. I remember the first time I was running my business a while back, I had heard your episode on how I built this. It's just a really inspirational story. So thank you. Now, I love the idea of living in possibilities, and can totally see how whatever you're living into and what you believe to be true will become true. So I guess the question is just, what do you see being possible for yourself in these businesses, and what's kind of next for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, nothing drives me more than watching others grow. So, I talked earlier about money. Like, for whatever reason, I'm just not money motivated. Yes, I have a nice house in Whistler, and I get to ski, and that's about my, sort of our one treat as a family, and we love to travel. But I drive a Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. We don't have any fancy cars. It just doesn't drive me. So what drives me more than my family is, what drives me beyond my family. I love my family and they're awesome. But the only other thing that really drives me is to watch people grow and watch things grow. And so having a business opportunity where I've taken somebody who worked in our call center and they're like, I want in, and we figure out a way to help them get in. and help them find the money, and they start a franchise, and then they grow and they're living their own dreams, whatever that might look like. It's unbelievable. You know, Paul Guy, our first franchise partner, started $25,000 in debt, drove a truck across the country. We hadn't had a franchise yet. He was the first one. And he's a money motivated guy. You know, his dream was to have an Audi R8. I'm like, dude, go for it. Get a Lamborghini. I mean, get a big house with a bunch of garages where you can have as many cars as you want. If that's your dream and makes you tick, we get excited. We play a little part in that. So the what's next is more of a great thing. You know, to me, it's, if we've got a couple hundred, 250 franchise owners right now across our 3 brands, what about having 500? What about adding more brands to the family? So it just continues to be fun. Like even during COVID, as hard as COVID's been, all 3 brands have grown and are at record revenues. Our people are still fired up. You know, there's mental health issues. We all got a little bit of like, oh, another, you know, one of these days and putting on a mask and this and that, or someone that's sick. Like it's not fun, but we still choose to make everything we do the best it can possibly be. And it's lots of opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love how I'm looking at it like it's all happening for you and not that it's happening to you. I think Tony Robbins sort of thing. So I really appreciate it, Brian.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, John.
So Jessica.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for coming out and speaking. It's been a pleasure to listen to what you have to say. And thank you to Chris and everyone else who organized this event. I'm having a great time. Okay, so I'm a rookie this year at StudentWorks Painting, and I've already learned so much. And one of the biggest takeaways I've learned is, you know, how to balance that motivation, that passion, and like that will with just the discipline that has to come with it when you're running a business, when you have stuff you got to do. So my question to you is, you know, how do you find that perfect balance? Because obviously it's, you know, you found something that works for you. So yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I'm lucky. I feel like I was born motivated. You know, I feel like I'm always driven to do fun stuff. I just, you know, I think I make my own opportunity, and sometimes I'm all out and I'm going really hard. And sometimes I'm like, okay, you know what? I need a bit of a vacation here. Now, you know, so my own personal routine, to give you an idea for a second, is, and I've done this for years and years before the company was near the size it is today, because it's what worked for me, is Monday to Thursday, I work hard. Friday to Sunday, I play hard. And, you know, so Monday is my out of the office day. Now, this is pre-COVID when, you know, things were a bit different. Monday was out of the office. It's my thinking day. It's strategy. It's new opportunities. Tuesday to Thursday is back-to-back meetings. And then again, Friday and the weekends, time with the family, skiing, whatever it might be. I've realized that for me to stay motivated, for me to have the energy to do what I want to do, I need some time away from the business. So I literally go so far as to, and I've done this for like probably 15 plus, maybe 20 years. When I'm on vacation with my family, with my wife, with friends, doesn't matter. I get my assistant to change my passcode on my email, on my social media, on everything. I can't get into it. So if I go to Italy or I go to, you know, Kelowna, it doesn't matter. I'm on vacation. I'm not reachable. I've always made sure that I have at least one person there as a backup. So even as a small company, I was able to have one person there that could cover the phones, could do what I needed to do so I could recharge. And when it was their turn, I would do the same for them. So at O2E Brands, my parent company, we call it Going Dark. And it's really, we want to inspire other people in our company who have families, who have lives, to go dark and disconnect from all the social media and things you got to do business wise, so that you can come back with the freedom to be even more rejuvenated and motivated. I mean, my best ideas are after a summer vacation. I come back and people are like, whoa, look out, here comes Brian. You know, it's like they start seeing the squirrels I see, right? It's like, holy crap. So recharging is important. I think you can't always stay motivated. And you know, a myth is just, you know, in the beginning, you got to work crazy hours. I don't think so. I think beyond a certain point of hours, you've got diminishing returns, and you make bad decisions, and you get tired, and you get depressed. And so it's really just, to a point, recognizing everyone needs to recharge and reboot.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica.
Great question, Jessica. Louis Savarin.
Thanks a lot, Brian, for coming on. Really appreciate you being on here. I'm getting so much value, and it's really funny that you talked about what you just did, because I was listening to Gary Vee and Matthew McConaughey podcast recently, and he does silent retreats to recharge his mind. So I resonate with that. My question to you is, well, I wrote down work with someone who balances you. That's kind of what I've got from your partnerships and the people that you've brought on. So how do you find those people?
Yeah, I mean, you got to know what you're looking for. So I think that sheet of paper exercise that I told you guys about, where literally, I mean, it'd take you 10 minutes after this call to write down a sheet and go line down the middle. What do you love to do? What are you great at? What are you bad at? What don't you love to do? You know, Marcus Buckingham says, you know, actually, I don't know if it's him. Someone talks about, like, pick up your weaknesses and work on your weaknesses. But I think it's Marcus Buckingham who actually says, like, first focus on your strengths. Yeah. That's what I believe, is just focus on what you're good at. You don't need to be better at the stuff you're bad at. Be authentic, be who you are, and just do the stuff you love. That's where you add value in this world. And so take all the stuff you don't like and find someone to balance you out. That's my Eric, right? Eric, I mean, he loves the stuff that, like, he loves when stuff goes wrong. He doesn't want it to go wrong, but when it does, he's just lit up and he's like, okay, we got this. And that jazzes him. So kudos, because stuff's going to go wrong. Have a go wrong leader in your business who can take it.
And you're just really, well, you're vulnerable with your weaknesses and open about them, authentic. So then you can find someone that you can find that person who can.
Yeah, you got to be willing to, you know, in Willing to Fail, the book, I talk about the courage to make mistakes and learn from them, but you got to own it. You know, I mean, for the number of times in the business, I've had to say sorry to people, but I mean it. You know, hey, I effed up here. Like, I made a mistake, but here's what I learned about it, and or what I learned from it. And, you know, people often ask, so you talked about podcasts, and I think the most common question is, you know, what advice for 18-year-old Brian would you give him? And, you know, the advice I gave myself when I was 18 is, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Just own the failures. It's okay, because they will get you to a bigger, better place as time goes on. People are afraid to make mistakes. You know, the old school business model was, you know, you'd get fired, someone kick you out of the office, whatever it is, for making a mistake. We try and celebrate some of the mistakes that happen in our business because we learn from them.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Louis. Brandon Doak.
All right. Thank you, Brian, for your time. I kind of want to challenge you a bit in terms of your thought process, especially with, like, how the world is moving now in terms of entrepreneurship. Obviously, like, there's so many more challenges involved, and, like, you have to pivot your mind a lot more. Kind of my question is, if you started 1-800-GOT-JUNK now, how would you grow the company? Like, would it be different approach? Would it be the same way? Like, how do you think, like, do you think it could achieve the same success as it did like 20 years ago?
I think it could. I think that, you know, if you I mean, this is all hypothetical, so we'll never know the answer, but if we could rewind the clock 32 years and have the energy and focus and ability to learn and all the stuff that I had and apply that today, I think we'd figure it out. You know, I got so many no's on the way from people. I had people that when I went to say, hey, I'm ready to franchise this business, what do you think? And I had about a dozen people, like leaders from McDonald's and big franchisors, saying, no, it can't be franchised. And they, you know, I would ask them. I took that no, and I didn't just say, okay, thanks very much for your time, and now I'm discouraged. I said, why wouldn't it be franchised? Why wouldn't it work? What could make it work? If you were going to franchise it, what would you do differently? And they gave me the answers on how to sort of tweak the model and make it work. So I think that, could I do it again today? If I was 32 years younger, I think absolutely, because I solve problems, I think differently, I ask lots of questions, I'm curious, and I find out why isn't this working and what would make it work? And we would just retool. I get today is a very different time than 32 years ago and a different set of challenges, but there's always challenges. And companies need to innovate to stay ahead of the game. And that means listening to your people, your customers, asking lots of questions. And so it's a part of what we do. You know, I love Zuckerberg from Facebook, who says at his strategic meetings, and we use the same thing, who's the business that's going to put 1-800-GOT-JUNK out of business or Shack Shine out of business? What's the technology that's going to put us out of business? And challenging ourselves to continually think differently and reinvent ourselves. I mean, look at Kodak. You know, Kodak invented the digital camera. And they thought, you know, at a board meeting that it was kind of a cute little thing, and that artists really, you know, real artists used film. And they weren't willing to listen to themselves or people around them. And now, you know, they could have been the iPhone. So you innovate or you die, and you just look for opportunity. So I don't know if I answered. I gave you a lot of thoughts off the top of my head.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Awesome. Austin.
Hey, Brian, thanks so much for coming on. I've gotten so much value from your share so far. One of the things that resonates with me the most about your story is how you, unlike a lot of other very successful people in business at your level, you actually started out as one guy with a truck. And I'm really curious to know how you have changed and redesigned your own position in your own business from that first year that you were in action to today, where you did $1 million in revenue today. So how have you redesigned your position as you've been growing?
Yeah, so earlier, if you recall, I said it's easier to run a business that's much bigger. I used to be a part of an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And I was 26 when I joined. And I remember asking, I'd interview people, again, curious person, right? And I'd interview people who ran billion-dollar businesses or had been a part of them. And I asked everybody and got the same answer. You know, what's the hardest? Is it $1 million? Is it 100 million? Is it $1 billion? And everybody said the hardest was $1 million. Then it got easier at 10 million, and then at 100, and then at $1 billion, and then at 10 billion. And that just seems strange to me. I'm like, how is that possible? The size and scale, and it gets easier. Well, the reason being is it gets easier because you have a team, and because you get to work on the things you specialize at that you love to do. So for me, it's culture, it's people, it's envisioning new brands and ideas. And so it's easier. So how has my role changed from the early days? I mean, the early days, I was slinging the junk, cleaning the trucks, hiring people, answering phones in the sales center, you know, trying to beg my parents to still let me live at home in their little basement suite with free rent. And, you know, the world's changed, but it's gotten easier and better for me by focusing on doing what I love each and every day. And then realizing that, you know, my favorite day during the pandemic, if you will, if there's such a thing, was in March of last year. We did a Zoom call. We have a daily pre-pandemic, we had a daily huddle, 7-minute stand-up meeting where we'd have the entire company in one room, a big room, and we'd talk about what's working, missing systems, good news, all that kind of stuff. We took that 7-minute stand-up meeting and started doing it through Zoom. And in the first month, we had this, hey, someone said, let's make it fun. Let's do bring your family to work day. And I'm like, bring your family to work day. They're all at work anyways, because everybody's in the pandemic and quarantine. You got your kids, your furry pets, you got everyone there. But someone said, let's bring them to the screen. And so people were in pajamas, and you had dogs and kids and the whole bit. And you're scrolling through screen after screen after screen of 500 people plus their families. And you're going, man, look at this. Like, this isn't just a one-person deal. This is hundreds of people impacting a community of all of us. And it really, it was the most beautiful day of the pandemic for me, because it made me realize, if there wasn't a pandemic, we wouldn't have been able to see all of our people and their families and all the impact we have. So we're actually doing a little post on it, an article I wrote, where we want to inspire other businesses in March to have bring your friend or bring your family to work day. Like, people need to see the impact they're having. Like, when you go out and paint homes for customers, you probably feel proud, your teams feel proud of the work you've done, but it's bigger than that. There's a lot of people affected by the businesses we build. And yeah, anyways, long answer.
I really appreciate that, Brian.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
A really great answer. Conrad.
Yeah, hey, Ryan. Probably haven't been this glued to a screen since the beginning of the pandemic, so thanks for.
Nice. I wish I could say the same, but every day is like Groundhog Day. It's like, okay, another day, another screen. You guys are great. This is pretty fun talking to you guys.
But no, just awesome sharing so far, and yeah, like, I think the question I want to ask is, I think a lot of us starting out or starting our first businesses really find it challenging to figure out kind of when our employees or the people that we hire are no longer helping and more hindering. So one of the things you mentioned earlier was just about the fact that you had really gotten rid of 9 people within your business. So when did you recognize that, and when do you think people should, like, what would have happened if you kept them on, kind of thing? Like, what should people understand about these people aren't adding value anymore, and I'm too attached to them. I'm not committed anymore. I'm attached to them.
Yeah, I think with a business, you've always got to care about the bigger sort of plan and vision with the business, and not just that one person and feel, sorry for them. They need the job and feel too connected, like you can't let them go. I think entrepreneurs, certainly I was this way in the beginning. It's really hard to let someone go. You feel bad. But what I always try and do is I look at myself and say, what did I contribute to this not working? So that I can apologize and be transparent and let someone know, like, I messed up here. But also recognizing, is there something I can do to fix it? Is my culture bad? Back in 1994, is it bad because I'm making it bad and I'm not putting the love into it to grow it? Yeah, I didn't understand how to do that. I didn't find the right people and players to help me get it there. And I had to make a change. So I think it's trusting your gut. When you know you've got the wrong people, you usually know. Make sure it's not because of you, because that's not fair to them. And then make a change. And just, you can be human about it and say, hey, dude, I'm sorry, man. Like, this just isn't working out. And I think you're a great person. And this might not be the right fit for you or the right fit for me, but we help people often when we've let people go, try and help them find another job, a better fit for them. It's usually that they're good people. They're just not the right fit, or the timing's not the right fit, or we've made some mistake in bringing them into the wrong role.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Brian, what we're going to try to do is get 2 quick questions.
Sure.
So Jeremy Ullman.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for doing this. This is great. I'm not a business owner at all, but I find business absolutely fascinating. And I'd like to know what the worst idea you've ever had in a business context has been.
My worst idea? Oh, that's a good question. I mean, there's been so many that it's just, I think my worst idea might have been, we got into the moving business. We had a company called You Move Me. We gave it 8 years, a lot of money, a lot of time. We had franchise partners, some from 1-800-GOT-JUNK that wanted to start the business with us. We had too many partners. So in my businesses today, where it's myself and our president, we had 5 people in the You Move Me deal. And it was too complicated because we couldn't get stuff done. And you need a leader. You need someone who's in charge, that when there's disagreement, you can say, hey, with all due respect, here's the direction we're going to go. And so we kept going back and forth in an industry that was really challenging. And what made it so challenging was when you haul away someone's junk, the customer goes, oh, what a relief. There's no longer that pile of junk. When you paint someone's homes, they're like, whoa, what a transformation. When you wash their windows and clean the outside of their shack, they're like, oh, look at this. This is great. You know, people are relieved the job is done. When you move, no matter how amazing the movers are, stuff is still in disarray. It's disorganized, boxes to unpack. You're in a new neighborhood. You don't know the community. It's stressful. And we just couldn't make that a happy business. And so while it was a mistake and the worst idea I had, thinking in an arrogant way that, oh yeah, we've done this in these other industries, we can do it in this one, we couldn't make it work. And we had to sell it at a break even and get out of the space and let some franchise owners down. But you know, again, you learn and you take some valuable lessons that prevent us from making the same mistakes.
Awesome, thank you. I really like that point you made about how when you take things away, it's like a negative reward as opposed to a positive reward. It's really
totally
cool. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you. Thanks, Jeremy.
Awesome. And last question, Kory Bartram.
Hey, Brian. Kory Bartram, StudentWorks Painting West Vice President, out in Vancouver as well. You moved me, saved me one day with my pregnant wife so I could go to the World Juniors. So thank you very much for that. And you help out with my Christmas lights every year too. So quick question for you. Our students out West are franchise partners as well. We're a little bit different of approach than maybe somebody like yourself with long-term, because our students are short-term and we're a stepping stone for them. So what's the number one thing you guys look for in a franchise partner when you're looking at somebody that is long-term?
Yeah, so for us, we call it the 4 H's. It just happens to be that these words all started with H: happy, hardworking, hungry, and hands-on. So first and foremost, happy. We want people that are fun, that are, you know, smiling on, along the ride, on the adventure, right? And I feel that on this call, right? I see a lot of smiling faces, a couple of Camerons, John Cameron, Cameron Clark, Louis, like there's good smiles. David, there we go, right? And so happy people that are having fun doing whatever they're doing and want to be engaged. You know, Conrad says, oh, I haven't been this glued to a screen, right? You want that happiness. Hardworking is self-explanatory, someone that's got a good work ethic. Hands-on, we want people that are going to dive into the business and in the early days, figure it out, understand it before they lead and grow their empire. So someone coming into Shack Shine has to understand, like, what does it take to actually run the business before they get out of the vans and away from being a technician to build and scale an empire. Hardworking, hungry. Did I talk about hungry yet? Hungry is
not hungry yet.
Okay. Hungry is, do they want to build something and they really have the hunger for the growth? We don't do well bringing in investors. So if someone comes in to our brand and they go, oh yeah, I want to cut a check, and that never works for us. They've got to have the hunger to build and grow something special. So that's been our model and seems to work.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks a lot. I appreciate this.
Yeah. Thank you, Kory.
So Brian, we had 6 people ask questions. I'm going to go buy 6 books and send them out. Okay. So just as my thank you to you, a small thank you for just your time and effort.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I made the book offer. So here, let's partner on this. You can send out 6 hardcovers.
Okay.
Anyone that wants to go to my Instagram and send me a note and say you'd love a book, I'll send you the digital copy, because I love nothing more than people growing. And if you get something out of the book, awesome. So anyone, just go to Instagram, send me a note. Daniel's got it. Awesome. Send me a note and just say book, please. And we'll get you off a digital copy of the book. And all the best to all of you guys.
Thanks again, Brian. I just love what you're up to, and just really appreciate you making a contribution with all these leaders today.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, like I said, I can tell you're an engaged, smart group, and hopefully I didn't talk anyone into quitting school, and stick with what you got and keep on leading.
No, awesome. we keep them in school the best we can. So that's awesome. So everyone, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then Jeremy Ullman, you can shoot me a direct text with your address, so I'll send you a book as well. I know everyone else's address. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, everyone.
So in 10 minutes, we'll have Patrick present on mindset. Okay, so we're getting started.
Wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy. Grab my glasses, I'm out the door. I'm gonna hit this.
So really excited to have everyone. So Johnny, are you gonna turn that down? Fantastic. Wasn't Brian amazing? Woo! That was amazing. So really awesome to have his contributions, and really it's, you know, I'm not sure really if people get just how well off Brian is. And that's just not what turns your crank when you're doing well. What turns your crank is making a contribution and really being a difference. And you know, Brian's been a real difference in people's lives, in his customers' lives. Many of you or your parents are customers, and I've been a customer, and in his franchisees' lives, in his employees' lives, and it really makes a difference. And that's really what we're talking about. You know, we're talking about leadership. You know, how can we make a difference? You know, be greater than, you know, what it's about for us. You know, and really excited about that. And one of the things to do that is and I just saw so many areas where Brian's powerful mindset made all the difference. Okay, and Patrick has done an incredible amount of learning and development around mindset. I'm not sure what he's going to be talking about because he's just got a lot to talk about around mindset. But you know, Patrick, I will jump off the screen and have you take away. Patrick is our vice president, and is just such a huge part of what we are doing here in the Student Works Management Program. So Patrick, take us away.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the introduction, and it's going to be a tough act to follow with Brian. You know, like you guys couldn't have put me right before that.
Well, John did that on purpose. John did that on purpose. Yeah, Brian asked for a specific time.
To get back at me.
You got the short straw. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. I was pretty excited to be sharing this today. I'll give you guys a little bit of an intro as to what I'll be sharing today. Some of you guys may have seen it before, but this is a brand new presentation on the entrepreneur's mindset that I put together just for you guys, especially today. And it's sort of a combination of some different things that we've looked at in the past. So for those of you who don't know me, I just wanted to do like a super quick little intro slide so you guys get to know a little bit of what I've done. Chris already introduced me pretty well. I've spent the last 11 years of my life working with Student Works, and really with Student Works being the principal focus of you know, where I put my professional efforts. And you know, we've been really blessed to grow that business. You know, we quadrupled it, and it's looking like we're going to do, you know, more than quadrupling the business this year, which is just, you know, so exciting to see. And I wanted to share this little piece because I think it goes really well in line with what Kory shared about, you know, impact, and what Brian shared about really what gets him fired up is, you know, every year, I didn't get to have this moment with Chris in Mexico this year in 2020, but every other year, you know, leading up to 2020, I had a moment. I would have this moment with Chris where we would be at the bar in Coco Bongo on, you know, the last day of the season as everybody was wrapping up their businesses, and you know, obviously it's going crazy and everybody's having an awesome time, and we're looking around at this room with all of these, entrepreneurs who just busted their butts and really transformed over a season. And almost every year, Chris would look at me and go, "This is our job." Like, this is what we get to do. So it's been really cool to see the level of that impact grow over the years, where we're now, not only working with the most students we worked with before, but we've, really developed the best systems that we've ever had to support them. And just the other day, I had a district manager say to me, I wish I knew this 2 years ago. I wish I knew this. And I was going, my reaction was, could you imagine if I thought that about all the stuff I was doing 10 years ago? I was like a blind person, trying to hunt in the woods 10 years ago compared to now. It's like, I had no idea what I was doing compared to what I know now. And I was still we were doing really well, but it's just come so far. So, one thing that's been apparent to me though over the years is I've seen a lot of raw talent, like people that just came into this business with incredible skills in, whether it was sales or incredible skills in all these areas of their life, like creativity and all this stuff. And I've seen a lot of that talent over the years just go to waste because it wasn't applied right. And I've also seen people come in with, absolutely no talent. Like they would come into the interviews and we'd be like, we're really not sure. Should we give them a chance? And we'd let, some of these ones through and then, oh my God, were we ever surprised? Like, and that's when I realized I kind of started to figure out that this mindset thing really mattered, because at the end of the day, we could have these people that on paper should be crazy successful, absolutely bomb. And then on the other hand, we had these people that, should be like on paper terrible, right? Like, in terms of skill sets, in terms of what they've done, become some of our best operators and some of our best people, and I've always told this story that I went on to break the record when I was an operator, but when I was in my interview, I think they had rated me like a 6. It's like the 6 out of 10, like, he'll probably be okay. And I just sort of barely got in there, and lo and behold, I kind of ended up I ended up doing a lot better than they had predicted, and mostly because I approach things a little bit differently. So there's a little bit of a secret to what we do here, and I'm going to break this down for you guys in sort of 3 different sections. The goal is, I think everybody here is going, what is the secret? How do I achieve greatness? How do I do, and achieving greatness is really going to be personal to you. Like, it's not about necessarily, maybe it's about making money. Maybe it's about, making an impact. Maybe it's about, achieving a vision that you have. Maybe it's about whatever it is, right? Like, maybe it's about, achieving some mission that you'd like to, creating some change in the world in an area. There's something that you want to do that's great. And I'm going to give you, the pieces to doing that in this presentation. And we're really going to talk about sort of the different steps to get there. So the first thing we'll discuss is a little bit about developing self and really, how do I build myself into the person that I want to be and into who I need to be to achieve my result. Then we're going to look at understanding results and really how results get created in the world, so that, you can actually start to better understand like what you're going to need to do. And then finally, we'll sort of culminate that all into, the secret that I would say I discovered, but really I just found other people that were sharing it and then recycled it for you guys and packaged it neatly into this presentation for you guys. So we're going to be standing on the shoulders of giants, as has been said before in this presentation. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit about who are we? Like, who are we as people, or who am I as a person? And it's really a fundamental question that we ask about our identity. So this is something that you've been doing your whole life, is asking yourself the question, who am I? And it's a very fundamental question. Like, it's the kind of thing that, you know, there are university professors and philosophy professors that are discussing this. Like they're literally writing novels about this. And it kind of goes, you know, it's something that you throughout your life will ask over and over and over again, is the question of who am I? But what's really interesting about identity and you know, the self that we have and how we view ourselves is that we base it off of a really important assumption that rarely ever gets talked about. And that assumption, oh, of course I did that. And that assumption is that there is such a thing as one version of you, that there's a static self or a predetermined person who is a specific predetermined way, like a set of characteristics that make you up. Like Patrick Lalonde is, you know, A and B and C and D. That is who Patrick Lalonde is. That is his set of characteristics. That is that person. And that you can, and part of this assumption is that how you determine who you are is by looking at what you do, right? So, and really when you look at what you do, it's not looking at what you're doing right now, because like that's a very, very limited amount of information. But more importantly, we do it by looking at what we've done. So we look at the past and we go, well, I've done this, I liked this, I didn't like that, that went well, that didn't go so well, I must be like this. And we internalize that. So we create this picture of this static self that's out there. And we see the static self all around us. Like it's literally all the time. You'll see this in, you know, media and culture, and it's really all around you. Is what's the accepted point of view on yourself, your personality, and your identity, is that it's a static thing, and your job is to just figure out what it is. Like it's already there. You just got to go discover it. Like put on your thinking cap, pull out a magnifying glass and find it somewhere. And we've got all these, you know, what I believe to be fair, somewhat ridiculous sayings around, you know, be true to yourself and discover who you are and be yourself. And what's really interesting about these statements is that they all suppose that there's a way that you are that's already predetermined, that exists out there, and that the best thing that you can possibly do is discover it or find it. And it's all over the place, this thing. So then what people do is they go through a process. And the process looks something like this. I look at the past, or I look at something that's happening right now, but usually it's a lot of looking at the past. I look at the past, and I go, well, I did that, I must be this way. Or I saw someone do that, I agreed or disagreed with that. And you start to make up who you are, like the types of things that you think are good, the types of things that you think are bad, the sets of characteristics. Well, I'm a shy person, I'm an extroverted person, you know, I like, you know, being the center of attention. Ooh, I don't like being the center of attention. We make these decisions by looking at our past experiences and the thoughts that we had around those past experiences. And then that starts to form what we believe is the personality or the identity that we've discovered. And we think that we've discovered it because that's literally like the thought that you've been, that the idea that's sort of out there is you just discovered what was already there. And so since we create ourselves from the past, right, by looking into the past and seeing what we did, and then asking the question, who am I? Oh, I'm like this, I'm not like that, I like this, I don't like that. And we do that over and over and over again as a loop. And we look at everything from our ideas, our actions, our thoughts, what we agree with, what we disagree with, what we think is good, what we think is bad, and then also what we do. So it's all of that that comes in from the past and makes up who we are. Now, everybody on this call, or not everybody, but a large portion of people on this call are fairly young, right? You know, you're probably in your 20s. I know there's some exceptions to that, but I saw a lot of young people on the call, and I'm looking at a lot of young faces on my screen right now. But what happens is over time, the more you do that over and over again, the more rigid that identity becomes. And the more you start to believe it, and the more you're bought into it, and the more you really internalize it, like as part of this programming that makes up who you are. And eventually what happens is the static self, the belief in that set of characteristics, ends up becoming so strong that, well, what happens in life is circumstances change, right? So at one point in time, your identity and who you are may be enough to accomplish all of your goals. Like literally you could have a set of ideas, an understanding of who you are, an understanding of how you are, and that is enough to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And you'll be like really happy with where you are and where you want to be. But eventually, you know, this identity that you discovered by accident isn't going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to accomplish what it is that you want to go and do, right? Like you're going to have plans that require you being a bigger person, that require you being, you know, maybe better in some areas, or that require you, you know, working, you know, on like doing things that make you uncomfortable right now, like literally that go against what you've always believed to be who you were. And that's natural, because if you already believed that, like that, if it was already part of your personality, it'll come easily to you. It'll come like that, boom. And where you'll naturally get blocked is where it's really hard and where it's unnatural for you, or where it's not part of what you already believe to be you. So now, boom, you're stuck against a wall, and your static self is no longer enough to do what you want to accomplish in life. And so you get this loop that forms, right? Because what's happening is your past and everything that you believe about your past and how it's formed you ends up actually creating your future. Because when you look at it and you go, hey, this is the way I am. Well, and you take all the ideas from your past and you bring them in and you go, this is who I am, is these sets of ideas. Well, you take action on those ideas now, and those actions end up creating your future. So you create this loop where your past becomes your future, and you end up not being able to break out of it. And every single person here has run into that at some point in their life. Like, you know, where you were trying to do something, and who you were in trying to do that wasn't enough. And so we've got this problem of the static self, right? And obviously over time, we've got our goals. It's not enough. We run into this problem and we're stuck in this loop. So how do we solve that problem, right? What's the solution to all of this? Well, to really understand the solution, we have to start by understanding the self a little bit differently than science would have you believe it. So I like, or, you know, some people in science, let's say, would have you believe it. So I would say, I love, you know, using personality profiling. We use that a lot when, you know, we're meeting with operators. We like to use different models to try to understand people. And I think they're incredible tools. And I remember the first time somebody showed me one of those, they said to me, well, so this is the model. Someone's going to take this model and they're going to take this test one time, and it's going to show you their personality, and that's not going to change for their whole life. And the first thought that I had was bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. Like, that's complete BS. People are way more complicated than that, right? Like you cannot look at a person, have them take one test and go, that's how that person's going to be the rest of their life. Because it happens, and I see it on a regular basis, that people entirely transform themselves. I literally see it happen every year when I coach people, and I see them coming in to our program and I see them going out of it, and they are literally different people that go in and come out. So this idea that, you know, these patterns that people have are so strong that they're locked into them for life didn't make any sense. So I started questioning that idea. Is a person really just a set of characteristics? And the more I looked at it, the more I saw, well, they said, oh, well, because the data is self-reported, it changes sometimes, but that's just because, you know, they took the test before, it's not valid anymore, or they did this, or, you know, the data is self-reported. So those changes are just an anomaly because the person's, and all I heard was, no, you just don't get it. Like, this test is useful at getting a snapshot. It's like a picture in time. This is what they believed that day at that time with the ideas that they had in that moment. And so they had a good understanding of behavioral science, and it's also very persistent. What I mean by that is, you know, when you look at behavioral science, people don't change all that much unless they try to, or unless it's intentional, or unless something important happens in their life. They usually will follow the same pattern. So for the majority of people that aren't trying to transform their lives, that aren't trying to do anything great, they're just living their life day to day, you're not going to see that transformation. And then every once in a while it pops up like a blip and they go, oh, it's just a, you know, data anomaly. But can all of you be summed up so simply when really every single one of us is so complicated? So this view that we have of the self, right? This idea that you created, like how John created John, and you know, how he combs his hair in the morning, and what he thinks about himself, and what he considers he's good at, and what he considers he's bad at, and everything, like literally how I created me, and what I like and what I dislike, and where I'm comfortable and what makes me uncomfortable, all of that. Who created that? Well, what actually happened, if we look back at the process, is I sat there and asked the question, well, who am I? And then I answered it. I'm like this. I like that. I don't like this. I want more of that. Over and over again. So who created me? It's me, right here. This guy. The reflection in the mirror. I created that person who's right there. And so what does that really mean about self? It's entirely self-created. Like you yourself created it from nothing. And so yourself is nothing. It's actually, you know, just this blank, open, white space that I left here. Because it wasn't anything other than what you decided to make it in every moment and in every decision. So if we are in fact nothing, then accept what we do and look back on, and what we focus on, and what we think about ourselves, then the logical understanding is that we are not static, but rather becoming. And so I'm going to walk you guys through this idea, right? If every single time I do something and then I look back on it and I decide, oh, I'm that way, I'm not this way, I liked this, I didn't like that. Obviously, time's always moving forward, or depending on your understanding of time. Don't get me started on that. But time, like literally, you're always living another moment and another moment and another moment. And so the next thing is always going to happen. And so at any one point in time, you are making up who you're going to be tomorrow, because tomorrow you're going to look back at this and say, who am I? And you're going to look back at yesterday and go, oh yeah, I'm this because I did that and I made this decision and I took that action and I liked this and I didn't like that and I was comfortable with this and I wasn't comfortable with that. And so with every moment that you're out there, you're not one thing. With every moment, you're actually becoming something. And you just don't know what that thing is going to be yet. It's happening with every moment. And so how do we harness becoming, right? How do we really take advantage of that and make it our own? Because now what we can do, like now that we have this understanding of identity, we can be way more intentional. When we started this journey, we were actually just trying to discover something that was already there. So we were actually just stumbling into stuff and being like, oh, that must be something that's me. I must be like this. And we were just doing it completely haphazardly. And now, once we understand that we're actually just becoming something, well, we can give it an aim and a target and aim it at something and become whatever it is that we want to be by deciding who we need to be and then acting on it. So if we want to accomplish like whatever our goal is, right? Whatever we need to be, whatever it is that we want to go and do, what we actually need to do is look into the future, determine who we want to be, and then start to act that way. And by default, we will become it. And so the question changes because we started with a bad question. We started with the flawed question of who am I, which has no intent and no ability to create what we want. But now we have a useful question, a question that allows us to use intent to focus ourselves towards what we really want in life. Who am I becoming? And with this question, rather than just recreating our past into our future, we can actually create our present through our future. We can look out into the future, determine where we want to be, and determine who we need to be, and then start to act that way. And then we become it as a result. And so this actually, you know, the future that we intend and the future that we put out there actually starts to mold who we are. And so this is a really important step in achieving anything great, because no one on this call, including myself, including Chris, including Brian, who was talking earlier, and Kory and John, and literally no one on this call is everything that they need to be right now to achieve all their goals. Because if they were, they would have achieved their goals. It'd be done, right? So we're always becoming who we need to be. And the only choice that you have is that, well, the only choice you don't have is that you're going to have to choose who you want to be right now, and then in the next second, and then in the next second, and then in the next second. So part 2 is understanding results. And this was really touched on quite well. But I'm going to be drawing on, like, this was touched on really well. I felt like Brian did me a huge solid when he gave the explanation, you know, of just the results in his business, 8 years to get to the first million. Then, you know, then 1 year, and then they're doing it now they're doing it every day, right? It's like, there's such a power to how results happen. And so we're going to go in and analyze that. And I'm going to be borrowing some concepts here from Ray Dalio, who wrote the book Principles, and just understanding how cause and effect works. So if we wanted to classify consequences, so really consequences are just like what happens as a result of our actions, right? If we wanted to classify consequences, we can look at them on 3 different levels. There's the immediate and direct consequence of an action. I feel like I might have. Oh, this is weird. It didn't save properly, but that's okay. So you've got the immediate and direct consequences of an action. So it's like what happens as soon as I take action. Then we've got, that's your first order consequences. So, you know, I gave a few examples here of what a first order consequence might look like. The first one here is you skip planning your work. So, you go, it's Sunday night, you don't want to do a weekly planning session to sit down and take a half hour to plan out your week and what you're going to execute on. So you skip doing that. Well, the immediate and direct consequence of skipping it is that you save time. Hey, now you got half an hour to go hang out, eat some Cheetos, watch some TV, watch an extra episode of that show you really like. Another example, you eat some cake. The immediate and direct consequence of that action is just delicious. I felt like nothing captured that feeling better than just a bunch of M's here. Or your third example, you work hard at something. Maybe you have a really hardcore workout. The immediate impact is that you sweat. It's not necessarily pleasant. You've got a little bit of pushback. It's hard. So then we get to second order consequences. So this is what happens as a direct result of an action, but that's not an immediate impact. So there's a delay in time, but it's a direct result. Now, for example, what we start to look at when we look at these consequences is we start to say, okay, we skip planning the work. And a direct consequence of that is that maybe the work is late or it's poorly executed, or we have to work harder to get it done, or, we don't delegate something we could have delegated. So we end up being stressed out. That's a direct consequence of having skipped the planning phase. However, it doesn't happen right away. There's a delay in time. And so we don't see it right away. It's like, next week, that's next week's problem, basically. Or, you eat cake and, the immediate reaction was that's delicious. The later on, the non-immediate consequence is, man, I'm really tired. I get a sugar crash. I crash on the couch. I don't do my workout that day because I'm burnt out from being on a sugar crash. And, that's a direct consequence, but not immediate. And then the last one here that we've got is, I work hard. I might get some initial results. Like I go do my workout and, in the moment I'm sweating, I'm out of breath, I'm tired. But then, I get home and I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, oh yeah, looking pretty good. Or maybe I feel good, or I get that endorphin boost at the end of the workout. It's not immediate. It's a little bit delayed in time, but you're starting to get something from it. And then we get to third order consequences. So these are actually the most important consequences of our actions, but they're often the most overlooked. They're the indirect and non-immediate consequences of an action. So this is what happens sort of indirectly and not right away as a result of taking certain actions. And so you start to see it if you skip planning the work, right? Well, the direct result, the immediate result was you saved time. Then, you didn't really hand in your work on time, or you didn't really hand in your work on time, or you didn't do it as well as you could have. Well, the indirect result of that is of skipping actually the planning phase is that maybe you get passed up for a promotion that year. Maybe you don't get approached for that new opportunity. Maybe, they pass you up and decide to go with someone else because you didn't get that good of a reference from the person that you worked for, right? So there's these indirect things, and they're the most important ones. They're the exponential ones, but they're the hardest to detect because they're so far in time. For example, gave the cake eating example, right? You end up feeling more tired. You end up, maybe it's years down the line, you have liver problems because of, a diabetes condition that you developed from your poor eating habits. I'm obviously maybe that one's not the best example, but you get the idea that, you work hard and then, you're working at something and you're working at something, and yeah, you're getting results. And then all of a sudden, you get the opportunity to clean Shaquille O'Neal's place and hang out with them. It's like you get an unexpected result from the hard work that you're putting in, right? Something that you couldn't have predicted, but that boom, it happened because you were out there doing the work. So that's your third order consequence. And now when we put this on a graph, we start to see what it looks like to go and try to do anything in the world. We get to work and it's almost like very little happens, except for sweat and late nights. And the bigger the project we're trying to achieve, the less it seems like it's possible. Like the smaller the little tiny increments seem to be. It seems like, it's impossible to get there. Then we get to the second order consequences and it's like, whoa, okay, things start to work, things start to kick up, and we start to get a little bit of an exponential, like growth from it. And then boom, years down the line, third order consequences kick in. And that's when you start to see the biggest results from the work and all of those all of those late nights, all of those times that you worked hard, all of those times that you did the right thing when it wasn't, the easy thing to do, but you did it anyways. It takes years before you start to see the results of those actions. So the power here is really important. And I think the way I understand it is, Bill Gates has this saying, I think it was Bill Gates, I'm like 99% sure. He said, and someone's going to certainly confirm it in the chat. He said, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. So this graph is the exact reason why. Why does that happen? Well, it's because most people think it's linear. So they're expecting it to just be this straight line. Like, they're going to put in the first year and they're going to already be at, this point over here. And then they're going to put in the second year and they're going to be over here. And the third year, they'll be over here. But what really happens is they're down here the whole time. And then all of a sudden, it takes off. So at the same time, while this is happening, while we're waiting forever to start to see the results of, the actions that we're taking, well, memory's also playing a trick on us, because over time, our memory fades in terms of like, well, what did I do to get these incredible results? Like, what was I doing? What was the work that we were doing? What did it look like? And your memory fades. And so you end up having, this challenging looking graph of memory and effect. And so a lot of people, oftentimes they'll give up right over here because memory had them forget. And now the results, and they've worked so many hours and they put so much time in, and they haven't really hit these results yet. And they're just kind of like, this isn't going to work, and they give up part way. Or better yet, that the other thing that happens is a lot of times it's not that they necessarily stop doing anything altogether. It's just that they lose focus, right? Like when Brian talks about running his business, he doesn't talk about how he dropped out of school and then had a $500 million company within 6 months. Like it didn't happen overnight. He kind of got distracted in a bunch of places along the way, as he talks about, but there's one thing that he did stick to, and he stuck to his core mission. And anything that wasn't part of that core mission, he looks back and goes, oh man, that was such a mistake. And so it's clear here that working towards something powerfully over time is how we get results, because of the way results happen in the world. And so we have to stick to it. So now this is going to bring me to part 3, achieving greatness. Now that we've kind of understood who we need to be and how the results are going to happen, I want to bring in one last concept. And I'm not going to go in and do all of this justice, but I'm going to do my best. So this is the secret that I'm going to share with you guys. And the part here that I'm not going to get to talk about as much as I would like to is integrity. So integrity is the first step in achieving greatness. And really, when I say integrity, I want to be clear about what I mean is doing what you say when you said you would do it. So integrity, it's not about working hard. It's not about doing the best thing or the thing that's right or the greater good or the thing it's very, very simple. It's, I said I was going to do it, so I did it. I put it in the plan, so I worked the plan. I put those hours in because I said I was going to put them in. That's the plan. Let's execute on it. Right? So it's literally, integrity is just about doing what you said you would do just because you said you would do it. So that's part one of achieving greatness. And then the second thing that you need is a big goal, something juicy, right? So goals naturally create tension and like allow you, they sort of create a path forward for you. So when Chris asks the question, what, like Chris Thomson, who's here on this call, who's our host, he's had this big, hairy, audacious goal now that he's been working on for the last, maybe Chris can clarify, at least 30 years of creating over 1,000 millionaires. And having this goal over the last 30 years has shaped a lot of the decisions that Chris has made along the way. And what it has done is had him think about the business and think about what he was doing in a really peculiar way, right? It gave him a focus and a way forward to go, if I want to create 1,000 millionaires, we have to, how can we do that? Like, we have to coach people incredibly well. What skills do we have to teach them? And so when you've got this big goal of changing something, of having an impact, right? It sort of forces you to go, well, if I want to make that possible, what needs to happen? What do I need? So it forces you to see a way through. Now, I always like to joke around because integrity without a goal is not very useful, right? Because you can be in perfect integrity. Like I find my integrity is constantly out. And it's constantly out because the way integrity works is I try to go out and do something even bigger than what I was doing yesterday or what I was doing last year or what we were doing last quarter. And I try to take on something even more challenging. And when I do that, it's something new, it's something hard. I find the areas where my integrity is out. I find the places where I don't have structures to follow through on my word. I find places where, I don't have the resources to execute. And integrity forces me, like it literally puts me in a position where I'm like, okay, how do I figure this out? How do I enroll other people to help me? How do I work with others so that we can deliver this and I can follow through on my word? So integrity can get you to do that, right? But it's only when you're working on it and it's only when you're working on something big that it gets more challenging. If I was sitting at home, I could have perfect integrity, way better integrity than I have now. Like I could break almost no commitments if I just didn't make any, right? And this guy right here very likely has quite good integrity because nobody's expecting, nobody's depending on him to do anything. Hopefully he doesn't have any kids because then maybe he doesn't have very good integrity. But for the most part, no one's expecting him to do anything. So he has very good integrity. The very few commitments he does make, he does them. So integrity without a goal is not very useful. But a goal without integrity also doesn't get anywhere, right? If we have a goal, we're like, oh, I want to really do this. And then, you sort of think about your goal and you think it's really cool. And then, you sort of maybe say you're going to try to do a little bit of something. And then, a couple weeks pass by, you kind of lose interest. I'll go do something else. Maybe you blow it off. Maybe you come back to it a few months later and you really never work at it consistently, right? You don't follow through on your word towards creating that goal. Then you're not really getting anywhere. So a goal without integrity is useless, but integrity without a goal is also useless. So the secret is combining the two. Right? So now if we like when we go to do this thing, right? We've got this big goal This is the thing that's driving us forward. It's our target. It's what we're aiming at. It's what our entire, like every thought that we have when we go to work is going towards that goal. And we combine that with integrity, which is really just a fancy way of saying doing what I said I was going to do. That's it. On time. Doing what I said I was going to do on time. And that's it. Not the best thing, not the thing that would be more ideal, not just doing what I said I was going to do. Flat, easy, no way, no complication, just execute on it. And what that allows us to do is integrity creates our focus in action and gets us pointed towards that goal. And the goal creates the forward momentum that we need to go and work towards that effect. And so over time, we get in action, we get working, and we can create great results. So that was my presentation. I'd love to take some questions on it. It's my first time giving the presentation, and I hope that really for people it came together, especially around this idea of really understanding how when you set your goal towards something, right? Like and you've got integrity, then who you are becomes who you need to be. Because you go, oh, well, I need to do that next. Well, how do I do that? And you start problem solving it. And so you start working towards becoming that person. And at the same time, obviously the results will take some time to kick in. And that's where, integrity is so key, because that's what keeps you working towards your goal. When it's not 100% clear that it's the right thing or that, et cetera. So, I'm really hoping I've got some questions.
Any questions for Patrick?
Yeah, anybody got questions? Anybody want to,
Okay.
Yes, Elia.
Yeah, it's Ilya, but yeah, almost
Ilya.
had it.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. No worries. It's a tough one. I love what you said there, and I think it could be more true. Integrity and goals just go hand in hand, and it's like two parts. It's an equation you can't separate. So I just wanted to focus in a little bit more about integrity itself. How do you, you always said you bring in integrity to almost another level when you want to reach the next goal. So how did you find yourself doing that, and how do you monitor your integrity?
Got it. So I love that question. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by answering the question by basically Chris Thomson and I, we've got a podcast. Chris Thomson has a podcast called the Leaders of Tomorrow podcast. And we dedicated an entire episode where Chris and I spend an hour and maybe a bit longer than that even, just talking about integrity and all of the ways, like exactly how integrity works. We define it in just a much clearer way than what I did. I tried to summarize it for you guys, given the fact that I didn't want to have an hour discussion just about that one piece. So I'd encourage you guys to go listen to it. It's the Leaders of Tomorrow podcast. Chris, what episode is it?
I don't know. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, yeah. So if somebody can put it in the chat, that'd be great. But what I did want to answer about like how you measure your integrity is you really just want to look at what commitments am I making, and am I meeting those commitments? And so the commitment itself can be verbal, like you actually physically said, yes, I agreed to this, I will do it by this time, or it can be implied. So keep that in mind as well. You're not getting off on technicalities by, by saying, oh, well, I didn't technically agree to it. Like it's integrity is about, either you agreed to it or it's implied that you were going to do it. And you measure it simply by looking at, did I get it done? Like literally, like, did I do what I said I was going to do on time? And I only caught a glimpse of it because my screen share is looking a little bit weird right now, but I only caught a glimpse of it. But I think Kory brought up, don't beat yourself up, or any tips on not beating yourself up. Like being out of integrity isn't right or wrong. It's not bad. It's not something that you're like, oh, you idiot, you're out of integrity again. Like, it's oftentimes a sign that you're up to something big and that you're challenging yourself and pushing yourself. And so what you want to do is when you detect, oh, okay, I'm out of integrity in this area, you go, what can I learn from this? Okay, what do I need to do differently? What would I have to do tomorrow, or what can I do now to get this problem solved, and to get back in integrity, or to, restore it? So in a short way, that's the best way I can answer it. But if you want to just really explore the concept of integrity, jump on, listen to the podcast. Chris, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to add to it is it's episode 201, Leaders of Tomorrow podcast, and then also as well, in terms of beating yourself up, it's actually out of integrity to beat yourself up. So it's one of those things where when I find myself beating myself up, I go, there's no integrity in beating myself up. And then, speaking to integrity, we are wrapping up in 3 minutes because we are our word, and we're committed to getting done at 9 o'clock. So Gabe and Xander, we're gonna do this again, this event, and this event is really, again, a contribution to leaders across Canada. We're looking to make a major contribution. We have for the last 40 years, as a few times have been dropped. I've got a goal for the last couple decades. I think it's more like 25 years of creating 1,000 millionaires, and we are committed to doing so. So I'm sorry I had so much information jammed into 4 hours, but I think it was an amazing first event. First of all, I'd love if you had any feedback, you can give some direct feedback to me on my LinkedIn page or direct messaging. My email's there as well. John Cameron, I know, would love some direct feedback as well on our event. And then one thing we want to do is we are going to post this recording and make it available on our LinkedIn page. So if you know of anyone who is interested, please share it. There's a real good chance you might want to listen to some of these parts again so that you can, as Kory talked about, make notes and actually take advantage of it and move it forward. So Pat, did you have anything to share? John, did I miss anything?
I just wanted to share 2 quick things. Like, I put my phone number in the chat there, 61, well, whatever, you guys can see it. I put my phone number in the chat. Anybody who had a question, didn't get it answered, please text me, especially because I'm getting a few direct messages, but they're going to shut down the minute Chris ends this. So, and for Xander and Gabe, I'd love to answer your questions, and I'd really love to know what your questions were. So please send them my way. Those were the 2 things. So anybody with a comment, please text it over to me so we can chat about it. This is obviously something I love talking about.
Awesome. John, anything else to offer?
No, just thank you everyone so much for coming. Like, it was just absolutely amazing to just see all the speakers. I really appreciate you guys coming and listening to whatever everyone was saying. Just very, very thankful for all of you.
And I've had a whole bunch of people hit me up on social media through text that they're going to be listening later. So the event here is going to have a major impact. And again, finally, I just want to acknowledge all of you for being here and really looking to make a difference in your lives. That's what we're all up to, and so excited that hopefully you found what we had to contribute to made a difference. So thanks everyone.